Hello and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see on your screen right now, AMX Global Season 5, Race 7. For the first time this season, AMX 0 here at Lakeville, Connecticut and Lime Rock Park with the Toyota GR86s. Now we're looking to shape up for a bunch of fantastic and intense racing today. But before we get into all of that, hey guys, my name is Damon and I'm joined here by Amir, who you are all very familiar with. And well, Amir, shaping up to be quite a slobber knocker this time around.
Absolutely, Damon, and in really raceable cars around a circuit that incidentally also is part of the National Register of Historic Places as well in America. So it's a great circuit with full of heritage and with cars modern day classics. So can't wait to see how this will go, Damon.
Yeah, if you guys were joining us yesterday for the AMX5, we had some amazing close contact racing, bumper to bumper the whole time. You can check out our socials down below from Instagram, Twitch, X formerly known as Twitter. You can join our Discord, AMX_global, our YouTube channel, our website at amxrace.com, as well as short form content on our TikTok. Now, as I mentioned before, this is the very first AMX 0 race of the season, which will then cap off with the first AMX20 race of the season later on in the day. So, before we get into the nitty-gritty of everything, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. AMX Global Sim Racing World Championship Season 5 overview dates are from May 25th, last week it started, and runs all the way until August 18th with a season prize pool of $15,000 as well as next level gear. The race format is as follows. We have a 15-minute qualifier. Top 15 results from the qualifier will then be shuffled in the reverse grid order for the first heat, and then the top 15 from the first heat will then be shuffled again for in reverse grid order for Heat 2. Driver cams are of course required for drivers in all classes. The way we pay out our drivers, the balances over $100 will be paid out each month. Race days this season are only on Saturday and Sunday, so we don't have any more Tuesday races. But if you want to take part, you can sign up to race anytime here at our website, amxrace.com. Our schedule is following Greenwich Mean Time GMT. Every race day will start at 5:50 p.m. GMT for the first race, and then 7:20 p.m. for the next race. Of course, as we mentioned before, AMX 0 and AMX 20 will be running every fortnight, and this is the first time that they'll be racing this entire season. Our prize pool is as follows for AMX 0. Total prize pool of $73 per race. Qualifying will start with $5 in first place and then go down incrementally until the 15th. Same for the both heats, but there is a fastest lap bonus during the races itself of $1. So you could walk away with around $6 per race. We also have a promotion running currently. If you buy our season pass, you can buy into every race and save 40%. You'll get passes for AMX5 iRacing, AMX5 ACC, Assetto Corsa Competizione, as well as AMX20. So very good value for money. If you want to take part in multiple races, I think this is your best bet to join in. Now, with housekeeping out of the way, I'm going to take it over to Amir for our track and car info tonight.
Yep, thanks, Damon. And as you can see in the background, as you've also alluded to at the start of the program, and thanks to the graphics on screen, we're at Lime Rock Park in Lakeville, Connecticut, and it's one of those historic racing circuits where it proves again that American circuits proves more than just turning left, isn't it? They know how to turn right, and they do it so well at this circuit. First opened in 1957. This particular layout we're using is the Grand Prix layout, 2.462 kilometers, and it just winds its way around the hills. Despite being a small circuit by any stretch of imagination, it really does have a lot of character, and really somehow they can manage to fit so much elevation changes in such a small venue. Really makes this a real driver circuit. And the car that we will be racing on alongside the Lime Rock Park circuit will be the Toyota GR86s. In this case, the Cup cars that are used in single make series, especially in North America and across here in the Asia Pacific region in New Zealand. 220 horsepower, rear wheel drive, 1.3 tons, and for those who love to have their hands at least not being as active as in manual gearboxes, sequential gearboxes, so they just had to flick the wrist to go up through the gears. But make no mistake, this car actually is handy for side-by-side action, and a circuit like Lime Rock Park really lends this car well to its characteristics. Now then, we have part of the schedule shown, and of course the track and car combinations shown here. It looks as though qualifying may just be coming underway very, very soon, and in fact we're going to head straight to qualifying now.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Amir, for that very informative detail about the track and cars. Like you mentioned, Lime Rock Park, very special to America.
Indeed, it's a different sort of circuit, isn't it, to the standard fare of just going left in an oval. This one is, yeah, this one's quite fast, isn't it? Look at that. We're actually bypassing the chicane area, which is normally used for when American Le Mans drivers used to race here. It's just a flat out area all the way to start finish line, and it's quite hairy if you were to get it wrong, because the first thing you meet is grass, the next thing is an encore barrier.
Yeah, fair points to all of them. And my favorite part about this track is that all the corners in particular have very, very straightforward names. You have the uphill, you have the right-hander, the left-hander, the back straight. It's all very succinct and to the point, and I really like that about this track in particular.
Well, the only other thing that we have to take into consideration as well, there is a straight with the name of it. You don't see it in maps, but you see it when you come across the bridge. If you drive the circuit, as you can see a couple of drivers nearly chopping and changing there up to go into the barriers, is the Sam Posey Straight, which is named after one of the famous sports car races in American history. That's a straight up to him, and oh, well, that's something that Sam Posey will not be approving of. That was just absolute mayhem, and is only in qualifying.
Yeah, and you can already see exactly how much of a struggle these cars can be in a track like this. As you mentioned, the fact that these tracks aren't particularly long, but they're still quite tricky and technical, and these cars can still come out underneath you pretty quickly if you're not careful with the way that you fiddle with the throttle. Not fiddle. Fiddle's the wrong word to use. The way you manage your throttle control, especially when you're coming out of these high elevation changes.
Yeah, you just have to modulate a bit, especially through the final corner here onto the start-finish straight. That could really be quite hairy if you were to get it wrong on the way there. As you can see, we don't have the timings on screen for the moment, but if you want to actually follow who your favorite drivers are on track, there is that QR code on the right-hand side of the screen to go in right now. But we can tell that we're watching Lucas Hermann, the Frenchman, that was involved in several incidents last week when we last saw him in AMX0, but hopefully he could actually clean up his act for this one. So far, at least P10 out of 16, so he'll start in P5 once the order shake up, as you know, as we usually do. We flip the script. As there it is, finally the timing screen's on right hand side. You can see Corentin Guinness up in front, only 4 thousandths ahead of Gonzalo Fabi, so that is actually quite a good battle for pole here, Damon.
Yeah, and it really brings to light exactly how fast these cars are going to be navigating this track, all the sub 1 minute laps from these cars. So any little gap of time can mean all the difference and increase across the race distance. Corentin Guinness, of course, we saw him yesterday in AMX5. He was the winner of Heat 1 of the first race and ended up unfortunately not being able to finish as well as he would have liked in the second heat. But regardless of that, we already know he's an extremely fast driver. Got a bunch of other drivers on the field right now: Gonzalo Fabi, Jackson Descende, Bruno Do Carmo, and Vanda Dantas, Fabio Zampolini, and a little bit of traffic there in the middle of the road on the track. And for this particular track, the roads aren't particularly wide, so definitely a little bit of an obstacle for some of these drivers as they are going back into the pits. Again, we were going down the list of drivers that are participating this time, and we've already seen some of these drivers yesterday, and they were definitely quick on the pace. I got to bring some focus over to drivers like Josh Perwin, as well as Jackson Resende, who last season didn't really have the best performance overall, but he has managed a little bit of a glow up this time around. And you can see that was all Boris Ovando there. We interviewed him yesterday, giving a bit of a whiff of his pits, already sweating up a storm driving these cars.
Well, that's not probably the most flattering of money shots we could ever think of. But hey, it does show his personality, isn't it? He really is not shy to be himself on camera. So at least for Bando, that's his first couple of seconds on camera. No doubt we'll be seeing more of him later on. As back on track here, we're looking at Gonzalo Fabi at one point, who was chasing after one of the voracious cars, I think, or that could have been Fabi's, I believe. But either way, we're going further behind. This is Gaston Kohavi, who's known to be in the wars most of the time, and he's got the sun in his eyes. So he's definitely doing what was I forgot which one of the other Argentine drivers who had a sun in his face, but really I hope it's not distracting for him, as evidenced right now by his lap time. Is about 1 minute point 2, 8/10 of a second behind Paul right now.
A bunch of other drivers that I actually didn't see yesterday as well. We have Ethan Reutemann from Argentina, as well as, I believe here, Simone Seminara from I can't tell which flag that is actually. Is that Italy? That looks like Italy.
It is Italy, because we normally see him in the ACC side of things. So this is, I think, one of his first few times that we've seen him in iRacing. As now, remember, it's actually Dino Filippa that Gaston Kohavi is emanating right now, with the sun in his eyes. Makes him look a bit more like he is up in the heavens at that point. As we have a guy on the controller, because you can see that he's using actually motion controls. That is David Pereira, on a PlayStation keyboard, and I would hazard to guess he may not be in his house right now, maybe in a hotel somewhere. But look at that, he can still at least get it as smooth as possible, and the way he's flicking through the corners is quite hair-raising. Only about 1.2 seconds behind Corentin Guinness, but no doubt he will probably find time as it comes across the line. No improvement there, but nice to see that any sort of peripheral is welcome here.
Yeah, the proponent of the wireless controller with its built-in gyroscopes as well as accelerometers could prove to be a little bit of something unique here. We've already seen the virtual reality headsets, but now to see a controller on the grid as well, doing not too shabby, still a bit behind the pace in terms of lap times, but again, always room to improve, as we are rapidly approaching about 2.5 minutes left in the qualifying session. So far, the positions on the board haven't really been swapped around. Corentin Guinness still holding on to that top spot, just barely in front of Gonzalo Fabi. You can see there on the bottom the deltas. We'll have a legend on that pretty soon, but basically purple means you're the fastest in the session, green means you're beating your personal best, and yellow means there's no marked improvement. Okay, so just as a reminder. And on screen right now is here Jackson Resende. Again, we've talked about him before. Bit of a glow up when it comes to performing in AMX. He just cuts the corner right there. I think he sacked that lap, no doubt about it. But yeah, I think he'll be pretty comfortable with P3 for the time being.
Indeed, and he was trying to get by his teammate by the looks of it. That was probably not the way that he would have wanted, but at least there was no collision there. In fact, it's Bruno De Carmo that we were looking at just now, having a bit of banter with his teammate there. Comes across the line. Looks as though it was an improvement to pole position.
Yeah, massive improvement from Bruno De Carmo there, 59.415. That means he's ahead of Corentin Guinness by 4/10 of a second, 4/100ths of a second, which is a very, very big difference, especially in a track that's this narrow, as we talked about. We've got less than a minute to qualifying. Still a few drivers out on the track doing their flying laps. We'll see if they'll be able to make any last-minute improvements. For the time being, another driver that we have to pay attention to, Gal Valero, unfortunately, this time around, hasn't been able to be particularly quick in his GR86s. We normally see him at blistering pace when it comes to GT3s or TCRs, sorry, but it looks like he hasn't been able to extract the max potential out of his 86s.
Yeah, and to make matters worse, he's just basically in between everything. You flip the script, he will still be in the mid-pack, so not the best place that he wants to be, as opposed to Bruno De Carmo, who's got the pole position. Yes, he'll start right at the back, but at least he's got some wads of cash and points on hand to propel him to championship contention. As meanwhile, more and more drivers are coming across the line. Here's Guinness trying to improve his lap time. Will it be an improvement? Yes, but still is second place, and he looks a bit miffed by that. But right up in front, it will be it will be Tim State with Gaston Kohavi right beside him.
Yeah, and important that you mentioned that for the watts of cash and the finishing positions, because again we have to mention this is the first AMX 0 race of the season. Drivers will be wanting to eke out as big of an advantage as they can as they're progressing throughout the race, and this is the biggest way they can make their mark for the time being. So results on your screen now: Bruno De Carmo in P1, Corrente Guinness in P2, Gonzalo Fabi rounding up the podium, Jackson Resende, Fabio Zeppelini, Evandro Dantas, Martin Chico, Gal Valero, Boris Ovando, Simon Seminara rounding up the top 10. Lucas Herman, Ayrton Reutemann, Josh Purwin, Gaston Kulhavi, and Tim State will be in top 15, and David Pereira unfortunately finishing in P16s, which means he will be starting at the back of the pack for Heat 1.
And look at that, first to 15th, only just 0.8 of a second. So it shows how close the field will be as we're about to go lights out here, Damon.
Yeah, and you can just see exactly how narrow the track looks with cars, especially cars that are as big as these. Like GR86s, yes, don't get me wrong, they are pretty compact, they are pretty nifty cars, but compared to the more dedicated race cars, they are still pretty tall and pretty wide. So a track like this really shows just how little space these drivers have to contend with each other. As we're still waiting for some cars to load up onto the grid, as of now, you can see Tim State there in front with Gaston Kulhavi behind him. And I just want to get your thoughts, Amir, on what you think is going to happen for the first heat. Commentators' curse notwithstanding, right?
Yeah, just hoping, knock on plenty of wood, that at least we could get a couple of clean corners in and see how the field shakes out from there, because most of the time it could get pretty hairy when cars are this close.
Yeah, here we go. Green flags are out, and you can see a bunch of drivers. Good launch on the start there, but I think that was Boris Ovando. He boggled the launch and immediately losing a large amount of positions there. Starting now in P15, he's now stuck in the back. He's not going to be too happy with that launch, but that's Kulhavi made it past in front of Tim State. Reutemann doing the same thing as well in P2, taking over Tim State's position. Valero making his way up as well. Still stuck in the middle of the pack, however. Has to contend with Jackson Vicente behind him, as well as Zamperlini in front. Herman, Irwin running up the top 5. Ooh, car just gone off there. I think that was Seminara. Yes, it is. He might have just gone off, may have been forced off, maybe lost control of the car a bit. But now he has to wait to rejoin the track and then leave space for David Pereira as well as Boris Wando to make it in front of him. And immediately, relatively clean start, but we did see a little bit of incident going on there.
Yeah, well, at least it was a clean start that we'd have hoped with. Yeah, a couple of instances here and there that drivers went up top. Never mind, spoke to say it might be a big one. And there's the big one, Guinness. Guinness has been taken out.
Yeah, Tim State lost control of his car a little bit there, ended up forcing Corrente Guinness as well. So now they're going to be at a massive disadvantage. 6 seconds clear of P14 Seminara, now back up 2 positions. Making it in front of the pack there. Gaston Kulhavi, you can see on the screen now, already set the fastest lap there, but Ayrton Reutemann is still behind him, with Josh Purwin actually making it up the field as well. He's in P3. Gal Valero not want to give up his position just yet. Still really early on in the race. It's now in P5. Hopefully he can keep a clean wait for an opportunity, maybe a driver in front of him to make a mistake.
Yeah, Purwin then very close to the Argentines, Kulhavi and Reutemann, but no doubt if they were to get very hooked up each other into the slipstream, they can work together here and pull away from the Australian. As meanwhile, the latter is having a bit of trouble trying to stay ahead of Lucas Herman. Herman, we saw last time how he could be a little bit of a loose cannon when it comes to collisions. And looks as though he's keeping it clean for the time being, pressuring Purwin as they come across the line to start the third lap of 15th. And behind him is another fellow countryman of his, with the countryman team being up in front here. An Argentine, 2 Argentines, now 2 Frenchmen. Valero behind Herman.
Yesterday we had, we can see the picture there, the Tim State and Guinness incident. Yeah, Tim State I think he may have got bumped and then immediately just lost control of the rear end, tried to gain control back but ended up smashing into Corrente Guinness. I think it might have caused a little bit of damage there, which forced Guinness into the pits to repair, which means that he is going to be in a massive disadvantage right now. But speaking of that as well, going back to what I was saying, I actually don't remember what I was going to say, so I'm going to start something else right now. Martin Chico actually lost it, giving Jackson Vicente the position as well. And Martin Chico, another driver that we had seen yesterday, didn't really have the best day out yesterday. ended up losing the car on multiple occasions at the very beginning of the heat, but looks to be in a pretty safe position this time around. He is going to have to contend with Bruno De Carmo as well as Gonzalo Fabi in front of him, behind him, looking down to hunt for to take away that position from him.
Yep, and those guys are actually pretty close outside of the top 10 here, but inside it, from first all the way to 7, Resende is actually still within a shout of actually getting up to the back of these guys, and so is Zamplini. So a case of a bit of Noah's Ark in a row there. 2 Argentines, 2 Frenchmen, and 2 Brazilians sandwiching the only Australian and the only Asia Pacific driver in this field, Josh Irwin, stuck there in P3 for the time being behind Ayrton Reutemann and Gaston Kohlhabi. But make no mistake, if Josh gets the bit between his teeth, he might be able to challenge here, but he still has Lucas Herman right behind, who's looking really antsy trying to get in front here. So the Super 7 up in front, pulling away from Martin Chico in P8.
Yeah, you can see Lucas Herman on your player cam right now. Face of massive concentration, trying to make it past Josh Perwin as they're coming up to at the end of the Samposi straight. He was looking for a move on the outside, doesn't quite cover enough distance to make that pass happen just yet. So Josh Perwin still under heavy amounts of pressure from that, but Lucas Herman isn't safe from that pressure himself. We got Gael Valero right behind him, and the gap between these 5 cars right now are less than a second apart from each other, and this is good, shaping up to be another intense one.
Indeed, and make that 7 because Resende is not that far off behind as well. He's about a second. Yes, it might look a lot, especially at a short track like this, but if he can reel it in and get a good couple of corners, he might just be in the thick of that battle. And look at that. He is right now just 0.6 of a second behind Zamplini, so he's managed to pull away from De Carmo, who's in a battle of his own here, with Fabi, Chico, and Dantas and all those guys right behind. Up in front, it's still at it here. Hammer and tongs from Kohlhabi all the way to Resende.
Yeah, Eder Reutemann is someone that I personally haven't really seen throughout the season. Maybe you have seen him last week as well. I'm not pretty sure, but he looks like he's pretty up there in terms of pace with some of the fastest drivers that we know are extremely fast here at AMX. As Gael Valero on the inside of Lucas Herman, making the pass happen. Will he be able to make it stick? As they're coming out of the left-hander, seems to be making it clear. Lucas Herman's not going to be happy with that pass, and Gael Valero making it look pretty easy, all things considered.
Indeed. Herman then got a bit bogged there by the fact that he was trying to battle Bowen, so he left the door open for Valero to come through. As we're on board Valero, looking at the back of Josh Bowen, soon to be married, by the way, in Malaysia no less. So happy marriage to him next month as he comes across the final corner. Then still chasing after Reutemann and Kohlhabi, so he is biding his time and waiting for the right moment to strike. But behind him, similar drivers also trying to line up to overtake him. It is quite a weird situation to be in, especially that you're also, not only are you hunting, but also you're being hunted. But it's a nice situation to be in because at least you can just watch brief in case something happens up in front.
Yeah, and you can see the comments already giving massive support to Anton here from Argentina. From Argentinian fans no less. As Josh Bowen actually bottled it a little bit. That means Gael Valero might have an opportunity to make a pass happen. I think he lost control of the car a little bit. Maybe he got bumped. We aren't really particularly sure, but that means Gael Valero, closing the door on him. Maybe pushing him off a little bit. Josh Bowen not going to be too happy with that result. He has to let Lucas Herman through as well. Down 2 positions now, and the Frenchmen and Argentinians are now locked into a battle. Gael Valero just has to keep up with Ayrton there. About 9/10 of a second separating these two.
Yeah, it's a tale of the previous World Cup, isn't it? If anyone remembers how Argentina and France went ahead that one, it was a slugfest. Goals aplenty. How they can actually just go back and forth and battle here. It looks as though the same thing might happen between Kohlhabi, Reutemann, Valero, and Herman, as Resende lines one up in the battle between the 2 Brazilians here, and Resende gets ahead with relative ease, but he really had to stamp on the anchors to get the car stopped in time. Coming through turn number 1 as more and more comes coming through. It does vindicate a point, isn't it? That the small cars on a track like this, relatively small, provide some really good action.
Yeah, actually, even I think small cars in general are just really, really fun to drive as well because they're all equal in performance. It all comes down to driver skill. Yesterday we had the MX5 Cup cars on Monza, and even that track, even though it was just a particularly fast track, it was still very intense bumper-to-bumper racing, and we're seeing the same thing here pretty much. Mikasa Kohlhavi still barely holding on to that lead. Erter Reutemann is slowly chipping away at the gap between them. Less than a tenth of a second separating these two right now, but here comes Gael Valero as well. He's in the draft onto the back straight. Ooh, looks like he might try to make a move. He's putting out alongside, trying to make a slingshot happen on the other side of the car right now, but has not able to make it past Reutemann just yet. He's still not giving up, however, and we talked about this yesterday actually. Gael Valero was biding his time for quite a while, and too long in fact. He wasn't able to mount an attack, ended up with some mistakes in the back half of each heat that costed him performances. But here it looks like he's pulling no punches and trying to make a way, find a way past Erter Reutemann. Look at how tight these two cars are coming in to the next chicane, while Valero actually closing the doors onto Reutemann. They're pulling alongside, side by side right now. Lucas Herrmann trailing behind them. It looks like he might make that pass happen, but it is a right-hander afterwards. Ooh, they're still side by side. Here comes Gael Valero getting Thanos step for a while, but he's back and he's pulling away.
Yeah, but for how long? Because you can see that Reutemann slinks it back on the inside, and he had a better run through that final corner then, so he might just want to regain back second place here. As another car comes to the shot, that's actually Herrmann. So the two Frenchmen are working together coming through turn one, but Herrmann is going to be the one so short here because he's going to have to go the long way around. Whereas Valero, he had a bit of momentum from that slight drop, just hangs up to second place. Reutemann now back up to third.
Yeah, that bump drive really did help Valero for a bit. Lucas Herrmann now sandwiching the Argentinian in between two Frenchmen. Herrmann is going to try himself to find a way past, but without the assistance of the drive from Valero, he probably has to drive massively well in order to close the gap. It looks like he's doing just that right now. Oh, I saw an incident there. I saw some clouds of smoke behind there. Might be an incident. I think that was Josh Perwin out, as well as Zamperlini, as well as Resende, and more cars are coming off.
Oh, that's a good spot there, Damon, because that was a major one. We saw it just now, how the dust got kicked out. We thought Josh Perwin might have actually escaped that one, but looks as though he was caught in that alongside Zamperlini and alongside the Resende as well. Resende has gone straight back to the pits. He's gone to tow to repair the car. Maybe he's just going to go for the fastest lap, but it's now changed the complexion of that top three completely, making that four, because Herrmann's still somehow involved despite being in that little kerfuffle behind Reutemann and Valero.
Yeah, I think Edvandos Dantas as well was involved in that particular incident right now, which leaves the top four pretty much clear of the rest of the field. The only car behind him is Bruno De Carmo, and he's about 2.7 seconds behind the grid, behind the rest of the front. So here comes the crash, the replay, picture there. Ooh, very tight entry into the chicane. I think that was Josh Perwin there trying to cut through the line. Zamperlini wasn't having any of that, and now it involves a major incident with 4 cars involved and a couple more afterwards, unable to avoid the rest of the fallout. Oh, that is really devastating for Josh Perwin there. He was doing really well in trying to maintain his position. Unfortunately, ended up in with basically nothing. He's still holding on to P9, however, so he's not in a terrible spot, but he's not going to be too happy with what transpired during this race, as we have about 3 laps remaining for the first heat.
Yeah, that was really unfortunate, wasn't it? He was just the innocent bystander, but again, due to the short nature of the circuit and how narrow it is, you can end up meeting an incident just coming right at you. You have no way to avoid it. So for Bowen, maybe it's time for him to regroup for the second race. He'll try to get more points out of that one as we look on board with Gaston Kohlhavi and Gael Valero. So Reutemann's resistance to put it up as an Argentine 1-2 has been broken for this one, and that leaves Kohlhavi with a similar shine to Dino Filippa up in his face, ready to try and make hay while the sun shines.
Oh! Commentator's curse just strikes again. I think he got bumped off a little bit, lost control of the rear end, and he's facing the wrong direction. He's not going to be too happy with that. And yes, he retreats back to the pit lane, but that leaves Gael Valero actually didn't manage to take that position. Reutemann took advantage of it and just slingshot himself to the lead. So now Gael Valero has to deal with another Argentinian in P1.
Yep, indeed, it's Reutemann. So Reutemann managed to come through, as we saw just now. Kohlhavi drops it through the final corner. Maybe there was a slight collision on the way there, but whatever it is, it's Reutemann now holding the advantage for the Argentine drivers up in front, with Valero, who's just spritzing in and out of reality ever so slightly because his internet connection might still be a little bit choppy. but it doesn't stop him from racing on AMX here, coming out to the final corner. Then side by side they go.
Yeah, here he comes into the side, coming into the San Posey straight from this final corner. Ooh, it's going to be really close there. He still probably wants to be in that draft coming into the finish straight. Again, with cars like these, the draft is so very important. 3 or 4 Ks could decide the fact from whether you take a position there. As Valero comes in for the 6th shot, actually blocking Lucas Herman as well. As they're coming into the first corner here, the penultimate lap. Valero taking a pretty wide line there, probably scuffed off a little bit of speed, but he's still bumping onto the back of Ethan Reutemann there. Lucas Herman still trailing behind, waiting for any of these drivers to make a mistake. But both of these drivers, the front runners, still keeping it steady for the time being.
Really good driving for all involved here, and that's the reason why they really want to actually make a good show for themselves, but also try to get a result. As oof, Reutemann got caught by surprise by Herman there.
Oh my god, Valero went full send into that chicane and actually managed to take the position for Reutemann, but Reutemann wasn't prepared for that. Both of them actually slowed down enough for Lucas Herman to come take the speed position away, but he's still trailing behind Valero. In fact, bumping in. In fact, we're in the penultimate lap. There's 4 cars jostling for this position right now. Bruno De Carmo out of nowhere is now onto the tail of Reutemann, still pulling up in front of Lucas Herman. He's in P3 right now. As they're coming into the first corner, Lucas Herman loses it a little bit on the entry, scrubbing off quite a bit of speed, and now he's back on the tail of the 3 cars in front. We have a Frenchman, an Argentinian, a Brazilian, another Frenchman in this 4-car sandwich right now, and it is the white flag which denotes the final lap of this heat, and they have got to be driving full throttle, pushing it to the limit this time around.
Indeed, one last way to go here. As we see a replay between Kulhabi and Valero, but it looks as though it might have been a little bit of a misjudgment from Valero there to hit the side of Kulhabi, and that sent him all the way to P15, but he'll start on pole for the next one. Coming through in final sector now, Damon. It's all very close here to call.
Yeah, Valero is still holding on to that lead. He's in fact half a second clear, which means he's probably going to cross the finish line in a comfortable P1. Reutemann here holding on to that P2 in front of Bruno De Carmo, and he looks like he's going to cinch it. Lucas Herman has to settle for P4 with Seminara at the back there. P5, Boris Ovando, P6, respectable finish from him. Martin Chico, actually pretty good finish for him as well in P7 with Josh Berwin, P8, Fabio Zamperlini in P9. Gonzalo Fabi rounding up the top 10. Here comes the final 3 drivers crossing the line as well. You have Tim Stade, David Pereira, and Corentin Guinness. Not finishing last despite the early incident, Heat 1. But again, he's gonna be pretty happy with that result. Disappointed with that result. I don't know why I said happy. No one was happy to finish at P13.
Yes, indeed. Anybody who finished outside that top 5 will definitely be a bit miffed by that one. But the guys who are in front, especially Valero, he will be ecstatic to have won a couple of extra dollars into his bank account in front of Ethan Reutemann, Bruno De Carmo, Lucas Herman, and Simone Seminara. With your top 5, with Valero also getting the fast lap of the race. So being in the slipstream really helped out big time, but it really was nip and tuck, wasn't it? Because he was only about 5/10 of a second in front of Ethan Reutemann. That 5/10 would have actually transpired if something would have happened, but it did not turn out badly for him. He is up in front and he's your bank Q session winner.
Yeah, great drive from Valero there. Probably a little bit too intense near the later half, but you know, that's just racing for you. He will be starting at P15 on the grid this time around, as we're now coming along to Heat 2. Just gonna wait for the drivers to roll up on the grid right now. You can already see them getting ready for the next heat. Oh man, a lot of expected results, but again, a couple unexpected incidents are pulling alongside. Here it comes. The drivers are revving their engines, still waiting for a couple of cars to load back in. There comes the green flag, the launch. See, a few drivers actually bogged the launch. That's Tim Stade there, bogging it alongside. I think that was, not sure who the white and red car is. I think that might have been Lucas Herman. Yes, it was in fact. Also bogged the start, so they're not going to be great. They're not going to be too happy with that result. As we're coming to Team 1, looks clean so far, but Valero is making his way out, and Lucas Herman goes off. Oh no, wait, that was Gaston Kulhabi. He's gone off, as well as Edvandos Dantas. Seminara also went off with major damage to his front end. I don't know what happened there at P1, but it looks like it was pretty intense because it just took out 3 drivers and immediately we're down from 16 cars down to 14.
Yep, with Dantas and Kulhabi being the biggest victims of that one. Yeah, but your heart goes out to Kahavi, don't you? Because he was in contention to win on that first heat, and then the second heat didn't go complete as planned either. So unfortunately, he'll have to chuck this result to the bin. And speaking of following your favorite drivers, there's the QR code on the side again. Just scan it, and you can see live timing as it happens, so you can tell who's coming up to the back of who. So there's a car behind going onto the grass even.
And Bruno Carmo just accidentally went into the pit lane. I'm not sure what happened there, but he is grayed out on the screen right now. It signifies that he is in the pit lane. Boris Avando now in between Josh Perwin as well as Lucas Herman. Herman there thought he was part of the incident, but it turns out he was fine. So looking for that opportunity to make it back to the front of the pack with the position that he so greatly wants. As Corrente Guinness is now taking over Jackson Resende's position at the front of the pack with Gonzalo Fabi and Fabio Zamperlini training behind. With Martin Chico as well, with Tim State actually in a pretty respectable position in P6.
Yeah, but how we would love to get a good result here, the VR user, where again I would say VR is a bit of a niche, but some of those guys who can make it work and make it work quite well. You really have the best of both worlds here. You can feel how it feels like to be a driver, but at the same time you don't have to feel the same type of injury. So State then doing really good right now in P6, but for how long can he hold that one?
Yeah, Ayrton Reutemann, one of the top finishers of our last heat, is trailing behind him and narrowing that gap ever so slightly. We're on board with Jackson Resende right now. He didn't have the greatest finish in the first heat, looking to change his destiny here in the second heat, holding on to that P2 position. Where is Gal Valero? I might ask. He is currently in P9 there, trying to make his way up to the pack, but he does have some pretty fast drivers in his way of Boris Ovando as well as Ayrton Reutemann, making in front of Josh Perwin and Lucas Herman more importantly as well. He just has to make sure he finishes in front of all the drivers that were behind him early on in the heat in order to walk away as the overall winner for this particular session. As Tim State there actually lost the position to Ayrton Reutemann, making that pass look pretty easy. Tim State, he's he's one of our more lovable drivers there, and his pace might not be entirely on par with some of the fastest drivers we have, but he's definitely out here to have a good time as well as learn as much as he can, as Corrente Guinness is still trying to fend off the attack from Jackson Resende, who is currently with the fastest lap of the heat.
Yeah, these are two big guns up in front of Guinness and Resende, who've been here for a few seasons now. As we look at what happened to David Pereira, it was just a simple mistake, wasn't it? He just went a bit wide coming through turn number 1 after the San Posey straight. Ooh, that was very close to taking out one of the other Brazilians there, but he got away with that one and is still carrying on with his race.
Yeah, I wonder how much of it is attributed to the actual controller, because I might be a little bit of a skeptic, but I don't really like using controller gyroscopes in particular, because you never really know how much of the input that the controller will register. Maybe that would have been one of the issues that popped up for him and costed him this particular race, but he's still in it. He's still in P12, so as long as he's still in the race, he's still going to be pretty happy with that. Oh, as I say that, he actually did drop to P13 there. Yeah,
it looks as though I think the controller might be a bridge too far for him, but again, it's all about driver comfort. If a driver prefers to have the keyboard and style with gyro, so be it, but doesn't stop him from competing in other series. Just take note of Max Verstappen, of course, how he was racing with a controller at the start of this season in Bahrain, where he literally just drove it in his hotel room. So again, there's no barrier of entry, but in terms of how you can try to be very articulate with the way you handle it, of course, a wheel really comes in handy.
Yeah, definitely. You can see here Gonzalo Fabi is still trailing a little bit behind Resende and Guinness. Guinness still holding on to that lead for the time being there. You see Gar Valero, he actually dropped 2 positions to Ovando and Seminara. Lucas Herman actually made it in front of him as well. So, but Valero really has to be on pace. We're already almost approaching the halfway mark of the race. Concentration has to be an all-time high. Remember, these cars are still rear-wheel drive. Anything could happen. They could lose the car from underneath them, especially in high-pressure situations like this. And we're on board Gonzalo Fabi now. He's staring down the tailpipe of Jackson Resende, looking to see if he can mount an attack within the next couple of laps.
Yeah, but the question is, where is he going to try? Because we've seen a couple of times through turn number 1, outside maneuvers are possible. but then it just tightens a bit on the exit from Big Bend 1 and 2 to the S's through the left-hander, right-hander. That's when you really know that a lap time can be made or broken, or a race can be won or lost by virtue of getting it right through those corners. We see behind somebody getting it completely wrong is Josh Bowen, who literally just mounted the curve coming through, and that was the reason why he fell into P14. And by the looks of it, he has unfortunately quit the race.
Yeah, really have to be careful with these curbs as well, because if you put more, if you start flying, then as soon as the wheels come back into contact with the ground, you just don't have the traction to power out of it in rear-wheel drive cars like this. And yeah, Josh Berwin actually paid for it, unfortunately, by taking the curb a little bit too tightly and then just flying off. However, the battle in front is still heating up there. Zampolini is going to try and make it past Gonzalo Fabi. He's actually closing up the gap between them, while the gap between Resende and Fabi has increased. But Eder Reutemann, man on a mission right now, driving, charging over to the front. He's now in the top 5. Looks to see whether or not he'll be able to catch up to the rest of the field before the end of the race. There with Montechico hanging behind him as well. Montechico, pretty consistent pace. He is running in relatively clean air compared to the rest of the field. The man of the hour right now, we are watching him on screen, is Corentin Guinness, still holding on to that lead for the time being.
Yeah, man, holding it quite well. We know how well he can drive out front, especially when he has clear rarefied air, holding the pace. So having said that, Resende is really giving him a good run for his money. And these are two guys that we don't normally see off the track, as we see what happened to Valero and Ovando. It looks as though Ovando's been pit maneuvered out of the way. Though, by the looks of it, he managed to make it at least back up to the top 10.
For some reason, there have been a lot of picture-in-picture replays in the past 2 minutes. There are actually a lot of incidents happening this time around. Most of it out of our eyes. But regardless of that, because of how intense the battle is for the front right now, we missed a couple of them. Don't worry about it. Our observers are always on the case. They got the visions that we don't see on the track right now. But what we do see is Jason Resende still drafting behind Corentin Guinness. They're really, really close together, but Jason Resende just hasn't found the line to make it past Corentin Guinness. Very good defensive driving from Guinness here.
Yep, placing where he wants the car to be, just frustrating Resende even more here. And he doesn't have many opportunities to overtake behind you, because turn number 1 is about the only place you can do it. The chicanes here are possible, but we saw already a couple of times how two cars come tangoing here if you get it completely wrong.
Yeah, definitely, and it's a very, very tight chicane compared to some of the other tracks that we've seen on the race calendar. So you really have to be committed to it, and you have to have trust and faith in your opponent to give you the space required to make the move. As Resende slowly losing the line from Guinness there. Has to try and reel him back in, but he is in the draft, so maybe by the end of this the San Posey straight, he'll be able to close the gap a little bit. Doesn't look like it is. The gap is now 0.2 of a second. But right now, really tough to call, because anything can still happen. We've got about 5 laps left in this heat.
Yeah, and you can see all the comments say just kiss. But for the likes of Guinness Resende, that's the last thing on their minds, especially a collision right here, where the result is so tantalizingly close. They could easily be propelled further up in the standings if they keep it together now. Really left rush again, and right again, that crest over the hill into the final corner. It looks as though Resende is losing it just a bit to Guinness. Guinness, on the other hand, mustn't be distracted by a driver behind, otherwise he will start making mistakes like that. Going onto the grass, just about saves it.
Yeah. And Resende as well, the white line on the exit there, losing a little bit more time. He might end up slowly trailing behind and losing the draft of Guinness. And in that case, he'll probably be in a bad spot. I say bad spot, but it's pretty relative. I mean, he's still in P2, so it's not a terrible spot.
As we now come up into the final 4 laps here with Guinness. Yeah, so Guinness and Resende. It looks as though Guinness is able to just stretch out the gap ever so slightly to Resende. So now he might be hitting what we call the go gear and trying to just secure the win right here by sheer defensive grit.
Yeah, Corrente Guinness very comfortable in that lead right now, about half a second separated down. Resende is actually losing time in the sectors to him. So as you said before, the go button has been pushed. Corrente Guinness final sprint all the way to the end. We've got about 3 laps remaining as they're coming up to the start-finish straight, the Samposi straight, as you so lovingly called it. And we haven't really talked about the track in its entirety. I've seen, because of the layout itself, it looks relatively simple. Like, it doesn't have too many corners and most bunch of high-speed sections, but you have to take into account exactly how narrow the actual track is, how little there are opportunities in terms of overtaking. As we're on board with Boris Ovando, he's being hounded by Gael Valero just behind him. Gael Valero wants to make it in front of him. He wants to finish in the top 10. Otherwise, that race position is still going. That first race position is going to end up not really meaning a lot in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, imagine that, how it could just not be enough when the chickens come on the roost, but still not over yet. Valero though, right behind by about 1/10 of a second here. You don't even need the gap on the left to tell you that the front bumper of Valero's car is being stuck behind the rear bumper of Vando's coming into the final sector. If he gets the exit right here, he could at least have half a chance in claiming the slipstream and try to send it on the inside.
Yeah, Boris Ovando there under substantial amounts of pressure for Gael Valero. He is in the draft. There are 2 laps remaining of the race. Sorry, 3 laps? Yeah, 3 laps. I'm sorry, my maths is completely off the wall today. But now, Boris Ovando has still under a bunch of high-pressure situations. Onboard Martin Chico is so very silently making it past Arthur Reutemann there in P5. Quite a ways behind the P4 right now. But Arthur Reutemann is the sort of guy who will keep putting pressure on you regardless of who is in front. So he's probably going to be feeling that just a little bit. We've got Lucas Herman back there in P7. Gap about 1 second, so he's going to have to try and reel it in as well before the race ends.
Yep. But the win is definitely out of the question because Chico right now more than 5.5 seconds behind Zamplini, so that's the best that he can finish here. Along with Reutemann, Herman, yeah, in that particular battle between the 3 guys, the top 5 may be out of question, but at least P5 overall maybe a good return for them. As we look on board now behind from Martin Chico, looking at Ayrton Reutemann, so that's the first time that we've seen Reutemann's face here as well. And it's a great combination of names, isn't it? First it's Ayrton was the center, and Reutemann, another F1 driver, so combination of both names. Let's see if Reutemann can channel that name and really attack for P4 here, P5 here.
Yeah, as in the words of Ayrton Senna himself, the late great Ayrton Senna, if you no longer go for a gap, you're no longer a racing driver. Unfortunately, we do have to take into account certain risks for races such as this. You don't want to end up costing the race for a bunch of other drivers. And so Ayrton Reutemann playing it a little bit safe with Lucas Herman very wide on the exit there, going almost all the way onto the grass. As we're on white flags, we're already on the last lap here. This is a pretty fast race, all things considered. Corrente Guinness is still holding on to the lead. In fact, he's extended it even further, almost a second clear of Jackson Resende.
Indeed, that is exactly what he wanted, isn't it? With the gap just now being about 5/10 only about a lap and a half ago, now it's close to a second. So Guinness then putting the hammer on the floor, really just pounding in the laps, and with that, is going to pay dividends big time.
Yeah, here he comes, rapidly approaching the end of the lap as well. Just after this final corner, I think this might be the end for him. And Corrente Guinness is going to be really happy with that result. Here it is, about to cross the start-finish straight. Very comfortable lead, but Jackson Resende is going to have to settle for P2, but still a pretty good position for him. Corrente Guinness crossing the line, flashing his lights, swerving a little bit. He's going to be pretty happy with that win. Gonzalo Fabi in P3, Zamperlini unable to make it past him in P4. Martin Chico running up top 5. Here to Reutemann P6, Lucas Herman P7, Tim State with the best finish he's had all season, in fact, including the last season with the P8. Saminara P9 crossing the line, Boris Ovando P10, Gael Valero unable to overtake him. This has to settle for P11 with Bruno De Carmo and David Pereira running up the top 13 finishers.
Yep, with a couple of casualties, including most notably George Owen, Eduardo Dantas, and Gaston Kohavi. So the channeling the light in his face in the way that Dino Felipe did. Really didn't work out in this heat, but no doubt he'll be back for the second one after this to make amends.
Yeah, and I think all things considered, AMX0 here, pretty good finish, but the big leaks are going to be coming up soon, AMX20. But we'll talk about it when the time comes. Meanwhile, the results here, your BenQ session winner on the screen, Corentin Guinness in P1 with Jackson Resende 1.8 seconds behind him in P2. Gonzalo Fabi P3, Samponini in 4th, Martin Chico in 5th, Ayrton Reutemann in 6th, Lucas Herman in 7th, Tim Slade in P8, Simone Seminara in P9, Boris Avando in P10, Valero in P11, Bruno De Carmo P12, David Pereira in 13th, and Josh Berwin, Gaston Fulhavi, and Vandro Dantas rounding up the final 3. Fastest lap actually goes to Guinness, so double win for him.
Yep. Double the amount of money and points that he's gonna get at that one. Though that first race really was quite difficult for him, wasn't it? He could have actually made it up to the top 10, but again, with that crash that he had with Tim State, due to no fault of both of them, it just put pay to that. But the beneficial part of it is that because he started further behind, he finished further behind in heat number 1, he started up in front in heat number 2, he just really mastered the art of defending there and go when he needed to take a crucial win.
Yeah, definitely. And on the flip side as well, despite the amazing Heat 1 win from Valero, unable to make any more headway in the second heat. So, tale of two different Frenchmen, both of them in really pretty much opposite positions. But that will wrap up AMX0 for tonight. When we come back in about 20 minutes time, we'll be joining the big leagues with AMX20, the first AMX20 race of the season. In the meantime, if you want to check out our content, follow us on our socials. We have Instagram, Twitch, X, formerly known as Twitter, Discord. You can join at any time, talk to some of the drivers as well as the commentators. YouTube channel, which you might be watching this on right now. Website at amxrace.com, as well as short form content on our TikTok. We've had a bunch of updates to the TikTok over the last week in downtime between the seasons, so if you're interested, go check this out. But for the time being, we'll be back in about 20 minutes for AMX20. So stick around, maybe grab a cup of coffee if you want, get something to drink, stretch your limbs. But we'll see you in just a bit.
House. This is house. This is house. This is house. This is house.
to save our home. We must travel through the gateway to find new energy.
Hallo und guten Abend. Willkommen bei AMX Global Season 5 with the very first AMX20 race of the season here at the Nordschleife, where these drivers will be taking the GT3 cars around for a relatively small but still can be considered a mini endurance race. Of course, the Nordschleife is a very, very historic and well-renowned track. Again, here we are. My name is Damon. I'm joined here by Amir, and first AMX20 race of the season. Very, very high stakes and very, very competitive. We've got a massive grid this time around. I want to get your opinions on what you think is going to happen later on.
Well, first of all, we at least don't have any fog that will ruin the occasion, because you know, as we've just seen in the actual Nürburgring 24, we had a 14-hour delay, which turned out to be for nothing because the race didn't end anyway. So at least this one, it's gonna be uninterrupted, and it will be absolutely frenetic around the entire ring in here in the Rhineland of Nürburgring. So it will definitely be a great race.
Yeah, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. But before we get into the race itself, let's do a little bit of housekeeping, shall we? You can see our socials down there as well. In case you missed it out, we have our Instagram, on Twitch, X formerly known as Twitter. You can join us on Discord for chats with our drivers and maybe some content. YouTube channel, which you're currently watching the stream on, most likely. The website at amxrace.com, as well as short form content on TikTok. But enough about that. Let's do a little bit of housekeeping, shall we? And here we are, AMX Global Season 5 overview. Dates were running from last week, May 25th, and will be all the way until August 18th, with a prize pool of $15,000 as well as next level gear. For AMX20, our race format is as follows. We have a 20-minute qualifier. The top 15 times from the qualifier will be shuffled into reverse grid order for the first heat, which will take about 30 minutes, and then the orders will be shuffled again in reverse grid order for the second heat. Bearing in mind, for AMX20, there is a mandatory pit stop requirement for these drivers. If you miss the pit stop, you will forfeit all your points for this particular race. Driver cams are of course required for all drivers taking part. Our payouts are as follows. Balances over $100 will be paid out each month. Our race days are on Saturday and Sunday. AMX0 and AMX20 will be running every other week. You can sign up to race anytime here at amxrace.com. On your screen right now, you can see the website link. If you want to take part, feel free to just join in. Our schedule is following Greenwich Mean Time, 5:50 p.m. for the first race of every race day, with the exception of Sunday, where every other week AMX0 and AMX20 will be running. AMX20 will actually be running a little bit earlier due to the shorter duration of AMX0. So it starts at 7 p.m. as you can see on your screen right now, on your clocks as well, because these races will take a little bit longer. Our prize pool, this is the big one for AMX20. $60 for finishing in first, qualifying Heat 1 and Heat 2 with an $8 fastest lap bonus for the heats. And these prizes will go all the way until the top 15 place. For this particular race, you need a minimum iRating of 4,000 in order to take part. So if you want to be a part of this, you gotta start running those races in iRacing. $1,000 will be paid out per race. And now our current promotions are as follows. You can race more for less, save a bit of money if you purchase our AMX Season Pass, up to 40% in savings, and you will get entry into AMX5 iRacing, AMX5 ACC, Assetto Corsa Competizione, as well as AMX20. So if you're planning to stick around for multiple races or more than half of the race calendar, this is the promo for you. You definitely want to be a part of this. And with housekeeping housekeeping done and out of the way, I'm now sending it over to Amir to talk about this historic track as well as the cars we'll be taking around.
Yep, certainly, Damon, and you can see some really nice shots of the circuit thanks to the production team behind the scenes. We are at the legendary Nürburgring. On this case, the Nordschleife is the full circuit that we're going to run around the entire northern loop in the town of Nürburgring. Opened in 1927 and with a length of 20.83 kilometers. So this is actually what iRacing actually incidentally calls the industry Fahrten, but in actuality it's just the typical tourist layout of the circuit that we normally use at, where we call the Nordschleife, that we're gonna use in. So not the combined circuit, the Gesamtstrecke as they call it, but just enough to actually give the drivers a full feel of what it's like to drive on what is undoubtedly the most daunting circuit in the world of motorsport. And to pair the circuit up with the cars we're racing on, well, let's just say these cars are perfect tools for the job. As you can see on screen, it is the FIA Group GT3 cars, or now is the current iteration of the GT3 formula, the latest ones as of 2023 for some of the cars. 500 to 600 horsepower, rear-wheel drive of course, 1.2 to 1.3 tons, and slightly better gearboxes on the steering wheel, so the drivers don't have to take their hands off the wheel. These are just the type of cars that pros really love, and it will make amateur drivers, anybody who's a dentist or just a guy who's dipping their toes into racing, really comfortable in it. So nothing much to say, but perfect track, perfect car. Can't wait to see how these things go.
Thank you very much, Amir. And just like that, we're now heading into the massive qualifying session. Now, bearing in mind that we only have a 20-minute qualifying session for these cars, so they don't have very many laps to do a flying one here as well, because a lap of this track is 20 kilometers, so take you about 6 to 7 minutes, which is basically, if you cut down time per lap, you have maybe 3.5 laps instead of flying one.
I'll make that too, of course, because you gotta take into account, once the time is up in this format of qualifying, it's over. So even if you're actually on a lap that you're close to the start finish line, that's it, you'll be out. So if you want to know how much time that you have left here, you can see on the right hand side of the screen. Just scan the QR code to follow your favorite driver and see how they're doing right now. As we can see on board here, we are with Chris Lollum, who's one of the main protagonists in previous seasons of AMX, just really warming the tires and brakes, getting up the temperature to start yet another lap, because we're already about 8 minutes into the qualifying session, so 12 minutes left. At least one more lap in it for certain drivers, 2 if you're lucky.
Yeah, and we talked about, we didn't really mention this before, but okay, of course the layout that we are on is the Industry Fahrten layout, which is pretty much the same as the Touristen Fahrten layout. The only big difference for these track in particular is that the start-finish line is in a different position. So for the Touristen Fahrten, it starts at the big back straight towards the start of the loop, but for the Industry Fahrten, it starts here at near Nordschleife, which is a very, very tight section that these cars are going to have to power through if they want to start off in a good position as they're entering the loop.
Yes, and of course, let's not forget that the first turn that is called at the Nordschleife now is named after the late great Sabine Schmidt. So, sadly missed in the world of motorsports. It's a shame that Moto disease has taken her away from us, but luckily her legacy lives on, and especially the Queen of the Ring has been bestowed upon it with the first corner of the circuit.
The Sabine curve, if I'm not mistaken, was it the Schmidt's curve? I think it was the Schmidt's curve. But regardless of that,
yes,
yeah. But again, track like this, we've talked at length about how notoriously difficult it is to navigate this track, because you have to deal with so many corners, more than 100 corners, and you have to be fully concentrating if you want to make it past without any incident. And it really does take a toll on on your physical self as well as your mental, because you just have to be concentrating the whole lap. And I believe these drivers definitely do have what it takes. We've got pretty much about 20 drivers on the grid right now, so pretty much a full house, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're going to be bringing to the table.
And speaking of bringing it to the table, you can hear the noise and pops and bangs on Chris Lawton's car as he went up to Arnell Force, the deep dive there before he climbed up the hill back up to the chicane into open air. That was really full commitment. You can see how he's really gripping the wheel, just keeping it under control. It is really a matter of commitment, and rightfully so, because he doesn't have enough time to actually do one outlap and get back onto the final lap, because this is about 1 or 2 chances that he has to actually set a lap time on the board before other times start rolling in.
Yeah, and you can our timing board is not up yet, but we are seeing a couple of drivers right now currently in the middle of their outlap, so to speak. We have Chris Lawler that we're seeing here. We also have drivers like Diego Villarreal, Gareth Higgins, Thomas Simon, David Toff, Pedro Dean, Evandro Dantas, Gaston Kulhavi, Sam Quaitert, Josh Perwin, Julian Alvarez. That's just a bunch of names here, and yeah, it definitely makes for some close racing in terms of this. And let's not forget, mandatory pit stops are required, so there is some strategy that needs to be factored in as well.
Indeed. And notice that we are actually we're following a few drivers here right now of similar colors, because Team Redline have a few drivers part of their stable racing here right now. So the likes of Koitert, Lolum, and I think I saw another one of the drivers in the Team Redline deliveries. I can't remember which one right now, but it's nice to see that they come into full force after literally going at it hammer and tongs with Williams Esports over the course of a 24-hour race in the Nürburgring last time out.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing what these drivers are going to bring to the table here. This is going to be probably one of the longer races that I've commentated so far at AMX. It definitely is shaping up to be an intense one, and I love the Nordschleife. It is definitely one of my favorite tracks, and it probably ranks pretty high on a lot of other drivers' lists as well. A lot of elevation changes, a lot of tight technical corners, a lot of fast areas as well. Not to mention how narrow the track is at certain points. It definitely is the complete package when it comes to testing the limits of driver skill.
Absolutely, that's why a lot of the automotive bragging points, the bragging rights have come from the Nordschleife as well, because it is a true test of a car's ability as well as the drivers. So yeah, really does put into perspective why this circuit is just highly sought after. Though then again, it has become a bit of a meme in terms of how many crashes that happen around the circuit, but make no mistake, it's still pretty much a great circuit, especially when you get the Nürburgring 24 hours, which unfortunately was truncated this year due to weather. As there's Koitert nearly going off there, coming up to the Schwabens fronts.
Yeah, and okay, that's another thing we have to consider, is that these curbs, they're so tall and can definitely throw you off your game if you don't attack them at the right angle. Especially with cars that are as low slung as these GT3s, you can even hear the underside scraping on the road ever so slightly at certain points of the track. And we're on board Diego Villarreal there, wearing a beanie cap this time, trying to hide that majestic mane of his. I would rather he let all of his hair go, because we get to see this amazing hair from him actually. And we already have our first lap on the screen right now. Is David Toff, the 6:34.394, and some of these drivers are actually approaching the end of the laps. So here comes Higgins as well, another 6:34, about 3 tenths separating them. Diego Villarreal here is also about to cross the start-finish straight this time around. We'll see where he ends up on the timing board.
As you can see there, Toff and Higgins 3 tenths of a second separating between both of them. As Villarreal comes across the line, it is about 7 seconds off from Toff's time, but he definitely will be winding up to try again, or maybe he's calling time on qualifying, just contented the way he is, as he has a sip of tea or coffee, whatever he has in that furnace, in that thermos, waiting to see what the lap times are coming through.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'd be really worried if he drank from a furnace, but regardless of that, yeah, basically all these drivers only have one good lap in them, and you can see Saavedra there jumping to the top of the leaderboard, 6:33.9, cracking the sub 6:34 times. More drivers are coming in. There's a lot for this particular course. There's going to be some pretty substantial variance in terms of lap times because of how long it is. There's definitely drivers that are faster in certain sectors compared to others. Half the grid has already crossed the line right now. You can see fastest time 6:34, and here comes Lolum, 6:32.7, blistering pace from him, and no less expected from him.
He's happy with that lap time because he's straight into the pit. So that's pretty much it for qualifying for some of those top guys. Lolum, Saavedra, Toff, Higgins, Aguiar. They're all in the pits now because they feel like, okay, that's it. They don't have to set any more times. But Herman has crossed the line earlier, so he might be able to just set in one more lap, time permitting, to at least try to upset the guys in front. As on board now, we are with a VR shot, Tamas Simon, another one of the Hungarians here right now, coming through the final sector.
Yeah, and another one of the proponents of VR, of course. Again, we talked about where some drivers are more comfortable with controllers than others, and VR definitely one of them. Very immersive, but you might, for lesser drivers, you might tend to be a little more risk averse when it comes to taking chances in corners like this. For some of these drivers, still got about 4 drivers that haven't crossed the start-finish line yet. I think Thomas Simon may have actually sacked that lap. Maybe he cut a corner somewhere because that lap didn't count at all.
And you know what's part is that he did cross the line just now. We were on board with him. He doesn't have enough time to actually set another one. So this might be him. It's consigned to the back of the grid. That is really unfortunate. It's further up in front. This is Matteo Victorino, who might just be able to scrape in a lap here.
Yeah, can we say he's on home soil for this one? Germany, Austria, Switzerland, kind of within that area.
Yeah, but I do believe, because based on his name, he might be a Swiss. So pretty close, but it's quite tightly knit in terms of the motorsports community between those 3 countries, because it is basically related from the Alps side. But yeah. If you see for example, like the Austrian F3 Cup, it visits countries like Germany and has drivers from Switzerland anyway, so it has a Swiss Cup underneath. Just an example of those 3 communities being together. But I would safely assume that he's a Swiss.
Yeah, no worries. I would agree with you with the name like that. And excuse me a bit. It would be pretty unfortunate for the drivers who aren't able to set lap times as well, because we have about 21 drivers on the grid, which means that out of the 21 cars, 15 will be shuffled into reverse grid orders, but anyone out of the top 15 will be starting at the back of the grid regardless. So definitely not a great position to be in, and he won't be getting any rewards from the qualifying session either.
Yep, as you can see, all the way up to P15, Dantas is holding $4 in his pocket here, with Gonzalo Fabi just a couple of seconds outside of that. He was just so unfortunate to miss out on potentially starting right at the front of the grid here for the first heat. But regardless of that, we might be seeing the time falling anyway, because here comes Matthew Victorino coming through the final sector. He's coming up through the Schabelsch ones now into the mini carousel. As we can call it a mini carousel because look, there is that concrete paved area and the car scraping at the bottom of the hill just so you can make the point across into the final sector now, and that long straight before he heads up to Tiergarten.
Yeah, there are a lot of corners here, but I want to get your opinion particularly on where you think most of the big overtaking maneuvers will happen, because as we go through the race, the drivers will be spaced out a little bit, but when it comes to drivers that are going to be competing with each other, the first point of contention I would say is probably the first spots, probably the carousel, maybe just before the carousel, but I want to get your opinion on where you think the other overtaking opportunities will be at.
Remember the Vanderlyn brothers when they came to Cropper? I would say here coming out to Tiergarten, that is actually another prime overtaking spot. If you could get it side by side here safely and then send one up on the inside coming up here to Tiergarten, that is another point of contention here. Maybe a good overtaking spot, but you really have to make it stick. As Victorino hit the anchor barrier, he can actually hear the audible sound of headlights braking, but he crossed the line, manages to keep it to third with just 30 seconds left.
Yeah, great. Oh, that was Eduardo Dantas. He just started flying there. I'm sorry, but that 296 does not have wings. He can't take it to space, and he's going to end up sacking that lap. But he did already set a time already, so he's going to be pretty comfortable there. Unfortunately, it looks like he might be out of the top 15 and have to double check. So maybe he'll be starting at the back of the grid, but definitely a little bit of excitement just at the tail end of qualifying there. We'll have the results on screen.
Yeah, that was a wild moment. Yeah, that was a very wild moment there from Dantas. Probably the shot of the race so far. But again, we have 2 30-minute races ahead of us and mandatory pit stops in between just to complicate matters here. But it's not something that Chris Lawler will be worried about in qualifying, but he'll have to worry once the first heat comes around because he'll be starting in P15 with plenty of drivers to overtake. Behind him is Marco Saavedra and Matteo Victorino, who managed to sneak in the qualifying time here, just enough to get it into P3. In front of top, Higgins, Aguiar, Valero, Herman, Soriano and Alvarez, your top 10. But guys at the front, Kulhavi and Perwin will be the ones to watch out for once the lights go out.
Yeah, definitely. And also have to pay close attention to that Valero. GT3's, sorry, not GT3s. His hometown is really TCRs. But regardless of that, GT3s are still very fast, very aerodynamic, very grippy cars, but they're still able to come out from underneath you if you're not careful. And with a track this long, you definitely have to be concentrating throughout the entirety of it. But Chris Nolan, will be walking away with the $60 from the end of that qualifying session. He's definitely going to be happy with that result. As here it comes in the grid here. Ooh, this looks like the tourist spot to layout because they'll be starting on the back straight. Oh no, there is a safety car in front of them, so they'll be doing a rolling start. Look at the start and finish straight. You can see how tightly packed these cars are. They're gonna have to be able make sure they're quite careful just before they set off. And I'm really excited for this, aren't you?
Oh, definitely. And again, there's a bit of added factor of why the sky looks a bit overcast right now is the possibility of rain coming. So can you imagine around the Nordschleife, but with the weather interchangeable, that will be the ultimate test of a driver's skill here, Damon.
Yeah, definitely. A little bit of unique circumstances here. Mandatory pit stops required and rain forecast. Probability is relatively high. And we're definitely going to be a bit of a challenge for some of these drivers where the circumstances, the factors of the track are going to be different to what they're normally used to. They're coming out of the straight up to Tiergarten right now. The anticipation is killing me because of how when these drivers cross the line, maybe we see some immediate intense action from coming out of turn 1.
So will it be a clean one? It's up to the drivers up in front to control. As you can see there, a new feature for this season, the drivers on-board cameras from the front. There you can see Josh Perwin in the dark in Western Australia, Bruno De Carmo in a brightly lit room in Brazil, and a few other drivers in between with VR headsets. Chama Simon is one of them. But we're going to get the race underway, Damon.
There goes, green flag is coming out, and Josh Perwin is edging out in front of the lead right now. That's not too hot on the heels. Pedro Dean actually making it in turn 1. Hopefully it looks clean. It does. Most importantly, the drivers are making it quite safely past that point. And Josh Perwin is now charging ahead, trying to get as much, gain as much distance as he can from the rest of the field. He doesn't want to be caught up in any potential incidents that might happen as they're coming out of Hatzenbach as well. Very, very quickly, once they enter the Flutzplatz, the first high-speed section of the course, they're definitely going to be looking for some overtaking maneuvers, because right after that is Arenberg, and that is a very, very intense braking zone.
Yeah, that's another corner that we can safely say is a potential overtaking spot, but to get to Arenberg at one point, you really have to hang it out onto the grass nearly a bit just to get the extra room, because you can see there, you can barely fit 2 cars around the Nordschleife.
Yeah, they're now crossing past they're now past the Flutzplatz, coming up to Arenberg just a little bit right now. Josh Perwin taking this opportunity in clean air to just pull away from the rest of the pack right now, but Gaston Kulhavi, oh, big accident there. I think that was Pedro Dean. He's just gone off, maybe lost the grip a little bit. He's in the runoff now, has to rejoin the track safely, but he's gonna lose a bunch of positions, now down all the way to P11, P12, P13, P14. He's just dropping like flies, these positions, and just giving them away like charity.
Yeah, that is really unfortunate, isn't it? But I think he might have been helped on the way in here as Lalom goes around the outside. No, in fact, that's Koited. So Koited, despite qualifying really up in front, in fact, he was actually right at the back, wasn't he? He didn't have the best of qualifying section because he didn't get the time in. Now he's trying to make it up for it in the first heats. But apart from that, I think everyone else made it through safely.
Yeah, definitely very, very clean in the first sector of the track so far. They're going to be pretty happy with that result as long as they can keep it consistent. Remember, there are 4 laps and we're only on the first one, and that doesn't count the mandatory pit stop that these drivers are required. So maybe we'll see some massive position changes at the end of the lap here. But for the time being, top 5 are Josh Kerwin, Gaston Kohavi, Bruno Del Carmo, Jackson Resende, and Alvarez here. Really comfortable. Comfortable is not the right word. Look at how close these cars are to one another. At any point in time, something could happen, and we're going to be here when it does.
And you did talk about strategy right now. Will any driver try to actually pull in early so that they can actually get clear air afterwards? I would say it might be at the back of some of the drivers' minds, especially if they're stuck behind one guy who's holding him up. Right now, for example, we're looking at Julian Alvarez. No relation, I think, to the Manchester City footballer. Just a similar name, also from Argentina, incidentally. Behind Resende, he might want to pull the trigger early and just come into the pit so that he could get clear air afterwards and maybe jump them through the undercut. Though, having said that, we're only in the first lap here. We're not sure how the pace of the race is going to be dictated right now.
Yeah. Oh! Immediate curse there. I think that was Matteo Victorino that went off. Has to rejoin the track unsafely. I think there was a little bit of incident that is listing a little bit towards the left. Miami experienced a suspension damage. You can see the front right tire is just caved in, and he's not going to be happy right now. He was doing really well making his way up the grid, but that just pretty much took him out of contention. He's now dropping back, and here's the incident with Pedro Dean on the replay as we're speaking. Coming into Arenberg, he actually got bumped on the way in, lost grip off the Porsche, and then immediately just came off, started in spin. Manages to salvage it, but he did bump the rail and suffered a little bit of front end damage. But other than that, I think he's in a pretty okay spot. He's still in the top 15, so he still has a chance of finishing in with a shout. But for Matteo, that really unfortunate for his behalf.
Yeah, he definitely is going to be crabbing all the way back to pit lane, but Dean looks as though he was helped a bit by Kohavi, incidentally. So no love there between the two great nations in the world of motorsport and football, there, Brazil and Argentina. But regardless of that, the race is still going on, and for Kohavi, he's only about under a second behind Josh Furness. We're on board now with Chris Lawlem, the guy who set the fastest lap in qualifying, only managing to make out one position from where he started. He's only up to P14 for the time being, of course, because we're only at the start of the race. The biggest gainer out of all of this right now is Koitert. So Sam Koitert, the Dutchman who actually had a bit of a terrible qualifying session, managed to actually make it up to a few positions to P11. So he's a man on the move right now.
Yeah, definitely, and have to keep an eye on some of these faster drivers here. Chris Lawlem, as you mentioned before, unable to make really any headway. Hunter up in front, we have Jansen Resende in contention with Julian Alvarez there for that P4 spot. But just behind them, another battle for P6 is Tobias Soriano and Lucas Herman. Again, drivers we know are very quick, but when you try like this, ooh, Lucas Herman, that's Alvarez. He's sending it a little bit, forcing Resende off. Gaballero also takes the opportunity to make it past, and Resende losing 5-6 positions again. Completely knocked out by that little bit of contact. Ooh, into the carousel immediately. He gets punted off. That was Saavedra. And ooh, that is painful for Resende. He wants to try and rejoin. He's already lost his wing. He suffered massive front end damage. That's not going to be great for Resende. He's even lost his trunk.
And you did say just now he was being knocked off there. Well, Saavedra said, okay, I'm coming in to knock him off completely. I'm pretty sure he actually cut the corner somewhere. That's why he had to actually lift off and just wait for the penalty to be received. But unfortunately, the Vaders have finished him off, as we see what happened to Lawlem incidentally. So that's why he only made up one position from the qualifying start. He was involved in that incident with Victorino, as up in front of him, the slipstream battles really proved to be the undoing for Josh Bowen, because he just got overtaken by Bruno Del Carmo and Gaston Kohavi in one fell swoop.
Yeah, because of how long that back straight is, if you have the draft, you immediately have the advantage of taking over that position. And we see a couple of drivers already going into the pits. That's Gal Valero, Aguiar, and Higgins into the pit lane. Probably talking about that early strategy, pitting early, get clean air, and then be able to set very blistering pace later on while all the drivers are coming in. A lot of drivers in the pits this time around. That is also Pedro Dean, Saavedra, Lawlem into the pits, of course, probably have to repair some damage. Thomas Simon, and Jackson Resende, all of them into the pits now, so they'll be clear. For the rest of these drivers, however, we have to wait and see whether or not they'll be doing the pits later on.
Yeah, bang on cue is exactly what I was talking about earlier, wasn't it? Because some of these guys might just pull the trigger early and just get that pit stop out of the way so that they can have a bit of clear air. But having said that, the pit stop only lasted for a second, so the delta they lost might not be a lot, but they will still encounter some drivers who were just being sprung out a bit and encountering drivers that were right behind the snake. So that's why it could be a good strategy move, but it could be detrimental if the guy behind, the very last guy in the train, happens to be the one clogging it.
Yeah, coming into Nürburgring right now, Bruno De Carmo is currently the driver in front. That draft at the back straight is definitely paid off for him. We're on board with Sam Coited right now, fighting against Toff out of Nürburgring into underneath the bridge, losing that position just a little bit, but I think he's going to try and reel him in throughout the rest of this next sector here. Immediately, over the course of one lap, massive changes in positions throughout the whole grid.
Yeah, big fluctuations, and again we can keep track of what's happening here because of the stops. So once the stop cycle through, we can really see who made up the most on their out laps, and for the time being, head of that queue is Valero, in fact, in front of Aguiar. So let's see how those guys who have stopped make up the position. And remember what I said earlier about being behind the guy who's behind the snake? Well, Martin Chico now is actually holding up Valero. That might not work out for him. As we look at a battle between Fabi and Coited, this is going on right now. It's close between them. But yeah, Valero might be a bit annoyed that he thought he had clear air, but now he has to battle with a driver in front.
Yeah, and you can already see how drivers have to concentrate, put 100% into keeping these cars under control, especially when it comes to going over these curves. As you mentioned before, these curves are really tall and they could definitely throw you off your game if you don't attack them at the right angle. Sam Coited here doing a pretty good job so far, bang on, just touching the tip of the curve to gain as much speed as he can, catching up the top. We're on board Martin Chico right now. He is trailing behind Ayrton Reutemann. We've got Valero hot on his heels. You can see, loses it a little bit there. And got Valero seizes the opportunity, makes the pass happen. And just behind him, Aguiar probably looking to do the same as well. Coming out of that corner, very clean pass from Valero here. He's going to try and make up as many positions as he can. He's currently in P11. We've got about, we're currently in the halfway point of the race. And here comes Aguiar trying to make it past Chico. They're really neck and neck, side by side, pulling alongside into the next left-hander. Chico has to give away that position. Another clean pass from Aguiar there. Martin Chico is giving away these positions again.
Yeah, Chico is the other guy who has not stopped. He's the last of those guys who have not stopped yet, and that will really hurt because not only is he behind the guys who stopped, he's well behind the next guy who hasn't stopped yet. So he is well and truly plumb last. Provisionally, of course, based on the fact that we had to wait until the pit stop cycle itself. But the net last place is being held by Chico for now, as we are on board with the Carmo with a fast charging Gaston Kojavier behind. So Kojavi then is not going to give up without a fight here. And I think we mistaken Kojavi for the guy that knocked out Pedro Dean earlier, because it was a Ferrari behind, but I'm not sure which one was that. We'll probably have to check that one out later. But for now, battle up in front is pretty close.
Reading the comments right now, better than the 24 hours in Nürburgring, which is hilarious actually, considering the fact that the race didn't even happen. So very hard, very easy to compare, but you know, it is what it is. Unfortunate that we couldn't have the IRL race here, so this will pretty much have to satisfy your cravings for Nordschleife action.
And of course, lest we forget, a couple of weeks ago when Max Verstappen was also taking part in that manic race in Imola. Before then, he actually was taking part as well in the virtual Nürburgring 24 hours. So a lot of these guys who actually did compete in that one as well. I did see Valero, I did see the likes of Lollam and all them boys competing there as well. So it actually makes a lot of sense that we have plenty of those guys who are racing in that one racing here as well. As we see what happened to Resende. Wow, that's really unfortunate, isn't it? He just wanted to get out of the way, but he still got tapped.
Yeah, he was trying to get onto the concrete part of the mini carousel there. Ended up getting punted into the wall. And suffered immense damage to the front and rear end. Probably had to stay in the pits for a little bit longer to get it fixed out. In fact, I think he's currently in the back of the pack. We don't even see him on the current timing boards right now. Yeah, it looks like he's out. He is in P21 in front of Matteo Victorino. again, really unfortunate set of circumstances for these two drivers here.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that incidents again happen to be the reason why they're at the back, but it's to be expected because again, due to how fast these cars are going, and they do actually run modified rear wings to prevent a Jan Madriper situation to happen again where they flip over the fluke plots. But the narrow nature of the circuit as well causes these kind of accidents, so you really cannot escape the inevitable at times.
Yeah, and when you mention those modified wings, I'm sort of like reminded of the remember those old Mercedes CLR Le Mans cars back in the 90s.
Yep.
Where they were so slippery that they ended up just flying down the Mulsanne Straight at Le Mans.
Yep, the short wheelbase didn't help, and plus they tried to install dive planes, but again, the lift nature of that car was just enough to send it flying. And no, we're not going to the TikTok memes, by the way. It's not the CLR GTR, by the way.
Oh my god, I can't believe you just reminded me of that. Oh, that was terrible. Oh my god. But here we go. Bunch of other drivers coming into the pits now. I think Bruno De Carmo is one of them. Josh Perwin as well. Tobias Soriano joined by Toff. That's 4 drivers in the pit lane for lap 2 into lap 3 right now. So we already see how many drivers have taken the pits. We still got a couple on our screens right now. Top 4 especially haven't got into the pits yet. They're probably taking the tires to the absolute limit before they decide to pit. Trying to pull away from the crowd as quickly as possible, gain as much time, because when it comes down to brass tacks, by the end of the 3rd lap, they're probably going to be competing really close to the cars in the back.
Yeah, which is again, that's how the cookie crumbles for some people, and for the guys like Gonzalo Fabi, who is actually among the guys who have stopped, you really know the feeling in your stomach when it's sinking, when you know that those guys have done their pit stops. If you haven't, you're gonna end up well at the back. But the guys in front here, Herman, Kulhavi, Alvarez, and Koitert, that might be beneficial for them. They could stay in each other's draft, work together as a team to just get it up in front. There may be a slight chance that they could net the net top 4 up in front.
Yeah, Bruno De Carmo 7.8 seconds away from Sam Koitert here. The back end of the P4. Ooh, Alvarez going a bit wide out of the exit of Arenberg. Losing a bit of time there, about half a second separating him and Gaston Kohabi. But for the drivers in front, they're pretty comfortable with where they are right now. They don't take the lead away from the other top 4. Josh Perwin was included in that. Ended up pitting the last lap. So he's going to have to try and make up a bit of time here.
Indeed, but speaking of making up time, that's Owen now being taken hand over fist by Soriano behind. As we can see what happened to Chico and Higgins, this was actually out of our view because we saw incidents plenty, but this was actually out of our sight.
That's so unfortunate.
Yeah, the Porsche there really was not going on there. He thought he was going to be clear, but then just got tapped anyway. Luckily it wasn't Pedro Dean, because there's Dean coming through in that shot towards the end. But great job to the production team picking up shots that we did not see, so they could enrich the broadcast even more. And that was a big one, but not as big as what happened to Resende.
Yeah, definitely. And we're on board Josh Perwin right now with Tobias Soriano hot on his heels. And contrary to what I sort of expected when the driver is going to be spaced out, we still got real pockets of competitive battling going on with some of the drivers on the grid at different points of the track. So Josh Perwin right now in a pretty precarious position. He is in front of this 4-car train, but he's going to be experiencing quite a substantial amount of pressure from Soriano in the back here. Gal Valero, another one of the drivers that we talked about, in P9, also hot on the heels. Chris Lolum as well, qualifying winner, still stuck in P10. Haven't made any headway yet, and we're already near the 75% point of the race.
Yeah, but for Lolum, if he stays where he is, he can actually just start further up for the next race, for the next heat, which is beneficial for him. But look at that, he's not hanging about there. He's trying to get in front of Valero, and Valero likewise is going to respond in kind, trying to get the better of him too. But all the while they're fighting here, that brings Santiago Agria into play too, as we now come up to the climb up the mountain here near the Eiffel Mountains towards the world famous carousel. It really does become quite paramount here that the drivers try to get in position as the track gets much narrower as we come up to the carousel.
Yeah, too wide going up to the coming up to the carousel. Just a few more corners before they actually arrive to it. Tobias Soriano getting the advantage out of all the other drivers. Now in front of the train, Miguel Valero also making it in front. That means Chris Lolum just gave away 2 positions. Here they come. This is going to be a really, really big point of contention. It's a very tight corner here just before the carousel. And yeah, you mentioned before elevation changes, especially when it comes to some of the uphill segments, and conservation of momentum is absolutely imperative for some of these cars. And I kind of want to get your opinion. Yes, these cars are going to be balanced to be relatively equal to each other, but I don't know if there are certain cars that maybe have slightly better top ends compared to others.
Yeah, at this point, I think all of them are quite similar because you really don't have many places to stretch out your legs apart from the back straight. But if you want the best bet to have a car that can actually slip through the straights, it's got to be the BMW because it really pulls on the back straight there, and the grunt of that V8 really does help out. But other cars like the Mercedes, like the Audi or the Mercedes, that's also quite different straight. The Ferraris and the Porsches are just good through the corners, so that really helps them out. Oh, speaking of Ferrari going out of view, that's Valero again, exhibiting the sort of problems that we have in sim racing where connection can be a little bit dodgy.
Yeah, and I got Valero really struggling with network issues for the last couple of days as well. And it's not really affecting his race, so to speak, but for other drivers, seeing a car just disappear and reappear that could throw off your particular line in terms of seeing whether or not there's a car in the line that you're trying to take, maybe cause an incident. But Valero, credit to him, he's managing to keep it very clean throughout the weekend. And jumping out to P8 right now, Chris Lolum is still hot on his heels, trying to gain back all the positions. And here, near the front there, Sam Coiter passing the mini carousel into the back straight. Again, drafting is going to be imperative here, but you have to remember these cars have to pit this lap. Otherwise, if they miss the pit lane, they're going to forfeit all their points.
And what a shame that would be, isn't it? Because what could have been 60 or 40 or 30 points and dollars in the bank would end up becoming naught afterwards. As we look at 2 different battles, this is between Kohlhavi and Coiter, behind this is Valero and Lolum. So this is where we see whether the grunt of the BMW is going to pull through. And guess what? Exactly as I said it, side drive included, Coiter powers in front of Kohlhavi. As meanwhile, back further behind, Lolum is ready to use the power of the Mercedes to get by Valero.
Yeah, and again, another making it slightly past him. I thought it might be a little bit too close for comfort for Guy Valero there, but the AMG GT pulls in. Whoa! Coiter there actually bumping the pit entrance wall. Maybe caused a little bit of damage to him, so maybe entered it a little bit too fast, but he's going to be clean. All 4 drivers at the front have now taken their pits, which gives opportunities for the current drivers at the back to make it past them. Here comes Sam Coiter coming out of the pits right now in front of Bruno De Carmo. Actually, no, Bruno De Carmo holds on to that P1 position, just cutting in front of Sam Coiter as they're exiting the pit lane. And here comes the rest of the drivers as well. Lucas Armand, David Toff, actually all relatively comfortably ahead despite the pit, which means the gap between them and Gaston Kohlhavi at the back there. Sorry, not Gaston Kohlhavi. The drivers at the back behind the top 5 really didn't manage to close the gap in time. But because of that, the gap between these 2 drivers was only about 2 seconds. So definitely over the course of this last lap, still something could happen.
But again, it just shows there how the 4 of them worked together in that point before coming to the pit stop really helped out. And the overcut really was the strategy to go, despite pulling trigger early might be helpful in the long run. But the short term, it really is helpful for those guys who actually went for the overcut. And look at how it paid dividends as around the outside goes Toff on Herman. That's a brave move around the flip clutch. You don't normally do that because if you go side by side there, you might just end up with the barriers, or like Jan Mandenbroek on the other side. But Toff made it through, and Kohlhavi likewise also powered past Herman.
Yeah, there is something we definitely do have to point out, however. Gonzalo Fabi did not make his pit stop, and he is already on the final lap, so it's definitely going to be painful for him.
Well, not painful in the sense that in terms of points or money in the bank as well, because he is only in P14 right now. Sorry, P13 in front of Thomas Simon, but it will set him back a bit afterwards, because again, it really shows how the strategies, as you said earlier, where you can pick the time to pit or when you can actually just try to be aggressive, really counts. And unfortunately for him, he was in between a rock and a hard place, and at times in no man's land. And in this particular case, he's out really in the open, no one around him to fight, but he knows full well it's a very fast sinking feeling.
Yeah, and we're still stop looking at the battle in front. However, Lucas Herman, as well as the picture-in-picture of battle for P7 right now, Tobias Soriano still holding on to that lead for the time being. Actually catching up to Julian Alvarez as well. So P6, actually the battle is more likely to occur as they're closing the gap between them. However, Toff is about 3 seconds clear of Sam Koitet, which means that unless he goes on a massive charge, he probably won't be able to close that gap in time or until Sam makes a huge mistake. So right now, Koitet and Bruno De Carmo in a battle for P1, probably going to be decided at the back straight if the Koitet doesn't really seize an opportunity throughout the rest of the track.
And here's that battling question right now. Remember the last time we saw a BMW overtaking a Porsche relatively easily? Well, they might find a bit of a tougher opponent as well in the front of Ferrari, where the Ferrari can be fast through the corners. It's important. De Carmo using the exit coming out of Bergberg very well to just inch out a bit of a gap to Koitet. But Sam Koitet though might bank on the power of the BMW on the straightaways, and in this case coming out to the carousel to really use it to his advantage.
Yeah, and you can see the track was overcast a little bit earlier. A little bit of fog coming in, but probably not enough to hold slow down the pace of the race right now. As you can see, they're still going flat out, pedal to the metal. You can see rear view cam of Bruno De Carmo is staring at Sam Koitet's headlights. Ooh, and he's really making a gap. He's sending it a little bit on the inside of that hairpin. Looks like they're pulling alongside, side by side. No, so Koitet backs off just a little bit as they're coming into the carousel now. Oh, a view slightly obscured by that board, but still managed to catch a glimpse of the exit there. Sam Koitet still waiting for an opportunity. Actually, you know, taking the opportunity right now. They're pulling alongside. He's got the inside track onto the next left and pulls out ahead of Bruno De Carmo. A very clean pass. However, holding on to this position right now, it's going to be really difficult once they get to the back straight, because Bruno De Carmo is in the slipstream. He could seize an opportunity to get a bit of a run into Tiergarten.
Yeah, but if we're coming through Whipperman aspect right now, this will be Ferrari territory. Let's see if Bruno De Carmo can actually still hang on to the back of Sam Koitet. But Koitet, once the circuit opens up and onto the back straight, that might be him gone, because the BMW is just that fast on the straight. I'm surprised that De Carmo let him through, because that looked like he got a very poor exit out of the Rudolf Caracciola carousel and just had to let the Koitet through, because Koitet had a better exit. Look at that. It really does put into perspective how good Koitet is. He's been carving his way through the field from P19 no less all the way back to first. What an absolutely brilliant performance here from the Team Redline driver. As further behind, this is Team Redline versus DS competition, and it's a missing front end for Lucas Herman.
Yeah, I think it may have been involved in a bit of an incident, but he's still pretty comfortable in front there. I would say that's a better look for the AMG. I don't like that huge grille that they normally have, but regardless, aesthetics don't really matter when it comes to car performance. Chris Lolum, another Team Redline driver, trying to seize an opportunity to make it past Herman. You can see here on the replay, we see how Herman actually lost his front end. He forced Kulhavi into the wall, a little bit of a bump there. Probably wasn't expecting Kulhavi to just cut into him like that. There you go, front end coming off right at that very moment. And Kulhavi, I think the big loser of that particular collision, punts himself into the next front, into the wall as well. And I think that might be him completely out. Managing to avoid incidents with the rest of the drivers, however.
Yeah, but we saw a similar incident early in the race where a car kept hit maneuvered there, and it was Lolum involved incidentally. It's just two cannot go to tango in a very tight space, and unfortunately one has to see the position, as now we're coming up to the back straight. We're on to Tiergarten. It looks as though Lolum getting a bit of a bump drive from the guy behind. That is Alvarez, and tucking to the slipstream does come Herman, but he's losing it a lot of time here as we come out to the final sector. Then two different battles going on here.
Yeah, Sam Koitet managing to hold off the attack from the Ferrari of Bruno De Carmo. A very sizable gap between them as he's crossing the finish line. A very well-deserved win from Sam Koitet, but here comes the battle for P4. Chris Lolum is trying to make it past Julian Alvarez. Will he be able to do so? Unfortunately, he won't as they crossing the start finish line. Big crash right as all the drivers cross the finish line there. Thank God they've already had the checkered flag waved down, otherwise that would have been massive. Here comes Gonzalo Fabi, however, the only driver that didn't pit throughout the last heat, so he's not going to be in a great spot for the next race. Meanwhile, the rest of the drivers here, as they're coming into the lines now, he's still waiting for Villarreal and Evandro Dantas, Ed Reutemann, and Martin Chico to cross the line. They're still considerably far back, but you know, it is what it is. They're going to be finishing out the top 15, so next race they'll still be at the back of the grid, but regardless, I think it's still going to be pretty intense competition for these drivers. You can see the fog is already coming in, and it is starting to obscure the vision of these drivers.
Yeah, but what an awesome race. As you can see, the bottom comment there coming through from site 815. Listen in, Diego Fel, driver cams, Meow, Just Keith, and yeah, plenty of contributors that we normally have in the comment section. They were absolutely entertained, and so as the rest of the viewers at home here. But you think that was enough? We have another one of this, so hold on to your seats, folks. It might be another wild one.
Yeah, definitely. And for all the people that are currently watching, you know, if you think what you saw was incredible, I implore you to share it to your friends, get more people watching, because it's going to be a slobber knocker for the rest of the race calendar. And we're still very early on, week 2 in fact. But here are your results for Heat 1. Sam Coyton, well-deserved win for him in P1 right now, taking the lead away from Bruno Del Carmo. David Toff in P3, Julian Alvarez in P4, Chris Lawlem running out the top 5. Pretty great finish from him as well. Going to be pretty high placing, despite the fact that he started near the back of the grid at the end of qualifying. Tobias Soriano in P6, Marcos Saavedra in P7, Gal Valero in P8, another pretty sneaky position from him. Josh Perwin in P9, Tomasimo in P10, Gonzalo Fabi in P11, Pedro D in P12, Mateo Victorino in P13, Santiago Aguiar in P14, Gareth Higgins 15, Diego Villarreal 16, Lucas Herman 17, Evandro Dantas in P18, and we've got 4 more drivers at the back aren't included here in the list, but unfortunately they won't be walking away with anything here.
Yeah, those 4 drivers were Reutemann, Chico, Kuhavi as well. They were that unfortunate incident towards the end, and your heart goes out to Jason Resende. He was involved in that big one as well, losing his rear bumper completely and deck lid to an unfortunate accident. But he'll have another heat to make up for that, as the fog now rolls in big time. I will hazard to guess it might just actually rain here, and that will compound the strategies even further.
Yeah, definitely. We get AMX20 surprises galore. We've got fog, we've got rain, we've got endurance, we've got pit stops. I mean, what else could you ask for a race like this, huh?
I mean, we got more and then some, if we're honest, but we still don't know what's going to be happening here, because the book has been opened and the story is ready to be written.
Alright, here come out of Tiergarten, coming across the start-finish straight in just a little bit, waiting for the safety car to hop off the track, and here it is. It's going to rain in the middle, as it says one of the comments. And here comes safety car entering the pit lane. Drivers are going to be setting off, and we've already heard them full throttle. Here it comes. Gareth Higgins taking the lead quickly from him right now. Santino Aguiar behind him. Mateo Victorino hoping to make a difference this time around in P3. Pedro Dean behind him as well. Gonzalo Fabi, Thomas Simon, P6. Josh Berwin also making his entrance there. And pretty clean T1 so far, but we haven't seen anything just yet. Probably a big incident might happen at the foot spots. Can't tell for sure. Although so far all these drivers are keeping it clean. That's a good sign for the future. And again, we have to point out the fact that because it's foggy, visibility is lower, so these drivers might be slightly averse to taking any more risks that might force them into an error. But just like that, that's Tobias Soriano. He's completely knocked out. He's facing the wrong way. He spun out, scraping the guardrail. That means he probably won't take as much damage as we thought. But that is a terrible start for him.
And you just jinxed it, did you? You just said that, well, it's going to be a clean one, right? And suddenly, right in front of us, a car literally skated across the barrier. But again, he was helped on the way there, so potentially the Cara stewards might just be involved in that one. But regardless of that, we don't have to mull over what's the outcome of the stewards report. We're looking at it here and now, and currently Higgins is making a beeline for it up in front. Aguiar and Victorino fighting for second and third.
Yeah, Higgins slowly making his way up, gain as much distance as he can. We're on board with Thomas Simon right now. He's right behind Josh Berwin in that Audi, driving BMW, the white and black BMW here. And he's currently sandwiched in between Gavalero and Josh Pro and two very fast drivers, as we know. But Thomas Simon is no pushover himself, so he's going to try and make headways as well. And yeah, I don't. Ooh, I can see that actually. That's Saavedra in that very, very iconic 190E Evo 2 touring car livery. What an amazing livery. I love that livery a lot.
Oh yeah, that's a good spot there, Dame. I was about to say that because it does look familiar. It looks like one of those liveries that you saw back in the olden DTM days, wasn't it?
Yeah, in fact, it was also on a Mercedes as well, the 190E Evo touring car. And it is a very, very good looking livery, but we can't dwell too much on it. But Saavedra here losing position to Chris Lollam of the Red Line Racing team. And the start of the first lap looking pretty intense. Pockets of competition happening between these drivers here. The grid is pretty spaced out, but on track as narrow as this, any battle is going to be an insane one. There is the incident in the replay of Soriano. He actually tipped the curve a little bit, and I think he did get bumped, but he was pretty twitchy on the exit of that corner.
Yeah, it was one of the Drago cars, isn't it? It was Mercedes as well. That might have been David Toff. Or Toff is the one that knocked him out there.
Oh, and it looks like Jackson Resende is also in a pretty precarious spot. He dropped a bunch of positions. He's now 11 seconds behind Diego Villarreal there. So I wonder what actually happened that caused us that massive difference in time. Maybe we'll get a replay later on, but aside from that, we still have to pay attention to some of the races, some of the battles that are happening as Gareth Higgins is being pressured by Santino Aguiar here, with Victorino right behind him. Ooh, Aguiar putting two wheels on the grass there to get a better run up on the exit. They're both alongside side by side right now. Aguiar edging ahead just a little bit as he has the inside track for the next right-hander. But here comes Higgins for the switchback, and ooh, Aguiar, he's gone off, he's been tapped, and he's into the barriers. Oh, the rejoin! Oh, no!
Dean. Oh, Pedro Dean. Once again, an innocent bystander.
Oh, that was so unfortunate. And Aguiar took a massive amount of damage. You can see the entire right side of his car had completely lost its alignment. And just like that, he's out. Pedro, I believe Marta Chico was also the one involved in that incident, so he's also out. Pedro Dean as well, back into the pit lane, he's out as well. Another incident on the carousel. That's Julian Alvarez, Tomas Simon, as well as Sam Coitet involved in that. Immediately, the top front runners of the previous race, Sam Coitet, is suffering here as he's trying to beach him, as he's trying to get out of the carousel, beats himself on the concrete just a little bit, but he's definitely not going to be happy with that.
Certainly, and a few comments also point out Pedro Dean being such an unfortunate bystander once again. First race he got knocked out. Second heat, he just wanted to avoid the incident but got involved in it anyway. So there we go, 4-5 drivers already out.
That is really unfortunate. In fact, more than that, however, we had 22 drivers on the grid. Now we're down to 16. So 6 drivers are completely out right now, and Jackson Resende is still safe in P16, but he really has to gain as much time as he can. Gareth Higgins, meanwhile, holding on to that P1 position after beating Santino Aguiar there in that battle, forcing Santino Aguiar off through no fault of his, by the way. It was just a relative incident, but Matteo Victorino is now hounding him for that lead.
Yep. But for how long that he can hold on to his Higgins, you can see eyes wide open. They're both not blinking actually. Victorino and Higgins, they're really concentrated right now, coming up into the mini carousel here, the Schwab-Schwanz. Let's see then. This is Mercedes versus BMW, both German-made cars, but both have the ground on the straights. Though the draft does belong to Victorino, and he might just use that to his full advantage to just power past Higgins.
Yeah, and the unique part about the carousel is that for the carousel in particular, really the most important part of the corner is the exit when you're leaving the concrete going back onto the tarmac. Here's a replay of the Santino Aguiar crash with Higgins. A little bit of a bump there, some contact there, but that caused Aguiar to completely lose control of his car into the barrier. And as he reverses in the track, that was immediately taken out another Porsche there, which is really unfortunate for him. You see the entire right side of his car, alignment completely off. Here comes Matteo Victorino at the end of that straight, and he immediately just succeeds that position because of the drop.
Yep, as we were talking about Aguiar, he was the one that actually went into the path of Pedrodin again. 2 straight heats. Really unfortunate that both of them were not his fault, but he became the collateral anyway, so he's gonna walk away here, unfortunately empty-handed, and probably just wanting to be somewhere else at this point. But up in front, Victorino powers by Higgins, and he leads away right now, so he is trying to make do his escape here, but Higgins will definitely not give up about a fight.
Yeah, at the end of the first lap, we've seen a couple of drivers in the pits right now, with Gonzalo Fabi actually pitting this time around. Lucas Herman, Julian Alvarez, Sam Coita into the pits, probably has to stay there a bit longer to get some repairs done. Jasser Resende is going to take a position back. No, it doesn't look like he is. He's still behind the rest of the drivers right now. 30 seconds, in fact. Really unfortunate situation for him, but at least he's still in the race.
And in fact, it says that Resende stopped, so maybe at the end of the first lap that he actually made that stop. But whatever it is, he will be cleared to come into the rest of the way, the rest of the race. As we see a couple comments coming in. Yeah, I think we will probably get a replay of what happened at the carousel earlier just now, because it was a bit unfortunate that we had, in fact, bang on cue, we have another view of that. It was avoided. It was actually blocked by the AMD sign. Oh. Tandem drifting, and then, well, chaos ensued, I would say, because a couple of drivers just couldn't avoid, because it is despite being the slowest corner on the track, it is the most unstable because it's concrete and asphalt put together.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, the exit is the most important part, but you really have to stay on the concrete to get the best line out of that corner. And Higgins now in P2, losing the position to Victorino from the end of the back straight because of the draft there. Has to gain back all the time, because right behind him, Chris Lolum is making time as well. Here comes Saavedra behind Gaston Kohavi, competing in a little battle of their own. The fog is really being laid on thick right now, so visibility again at an all-time low for these drivers.
Yeah, but at the same time, they're at least not gonna have to worry about visibility like they do in IRL, where they can't really see a thing due to the fog in the Nürburgring normally being thicker than this. So that's at least half the worry to worry about, if we can call it that. Though it does become a bit of a problem later on if it becomes even thicker and with the possibility of rain coming through. But for the time being, at least according to our forecast, that's not gonna happen. But the overcast conditions does make it very tricky.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen a bunch of drivers on the field right now. Guy Valero is actually in P4, so really silently making his way to the front half of the grid. Pretty good position for him, all things considered. In fact, he's about 2.7 seconds behind Chris Lolum. He has to make up that gap as much as he can if he wants to be in contention for a podium finish. Behind him, of course, Bruno De Carmo. So the cars right now, compared to last heat, are very spaced out.
And that will, of course, reduce the probability of having massive accidents, which is a good thing, because we do want these guys to at least have a good run so that we have things to talk about. Yes, accidents do make the talking points, but really for the driver's sake, we do not want to be involved in that. I certainly don't want to be involved in needless accidents on the way to finishing a race. As we're on board now with Saavedra. He's the only driver closest right now to anybody, with Kohavi, his fellow countryman, up in front. AMG vs AMG, who's going to prevail here? It looks as though Saavedra, despite the climb up the hill, in fact it's AMG vs Porsche, but despite the climbing up the hill, normally hindering cars, Saavedra manages to power his way through.
He definitely managed to get a bit of a draft there from Kohavi, and now he's pulling clear of Kohavi as we speak. A bit of time increasing there, coming up to the next big corner here. Oh, excuse me. I had a bit too much water to drink. I'm starting to burp all over the place right now, but that's just how it is when it comes to races like this. Have to be on point with the action at all times. Here comes the carousel. Very clean this time for all the drivers. And Saavedra holding on to that P10. He's still in top 10, which is pretty good for him. Diego Villarreal actually also in head, but talking about the rest of the grid right now, without the 17 cars, Santino Aguiar is actually rejoined the race. He's back on track, but P17 and a lap down on everyone else really isn't the spot you want to be in.
No siree, and really is just an extended test session, isn't it? Maybe just to salvage some pride. Maybe he could try to get the fastest lap of the race to get a couple of extra bucks. But apart from that, it is pretty much a lost cause. As up in front here, speaking of causes, we're looking at Victorino pulling a big gap away from Higgins. So Higgins now, impetus is on him whether or not he could actually try to reclaw back that deficit.
Yeah, about a second clear of Higgins is Victorino, but when it comes to the back straight, if Higgins manages to keep back into the draft, maybe he'll be able to gain some ground. But as you mentioned before, BMW is really good in those straights. And here he comes coming out to the back straight actually. We'll have to see whether or not they decide to pit this lap. Here he goes, the mini carousel there, coming out to the back straight. So, pit strategies. We've already seen a few drivers go into the pits. We're now coming up to the halfway point of the race. And so far, Kulhavi actually taking over Villarreal's position. Saavedra actually cut him overtook him a little bit earlier as well. So Villarreal having to concede the positions to both of these drivers. Here comes the back straight. Higgins is not in the draft as of right now, but is slowly closing the gap. As I say that, still about 9-10 separating these two. And here comes the BMW pulling along with its fastest straight line speed. The gap is still narrowing just a hair though. The AMGs are no slouch. No, when it comes to straights like this, 260 Ks at the end of the straight coming out to Tiergarten. Chris Lolum unable to make any headway with still about 2.6 seconds separating them.
Yeah, but again, the gap was about 1.1 seconds. Half a second gain from just being in that slipstream, and they bypassed the pit lane, so they're waiting to go onto the final lap, make their pit stops here. As fast lap of the race goes to Victorino, but just 0.3 of a second difference between him and Higgins here. I was like, no, in fact, Chris Lolum gets the fastest lap, so he's got to move on here. As more and more drivers coming into the pits here to them pulling the trigger.
Yeah, so Bruno Carmo and David Toff are pitting on at the end of lap 2. Reutemann as well joining them. So that's only 3 drivers is pitting. I think the prevailing strategy is to pit at the very end and gain as much ground as you can for the beginning in order to avoid getting overcut. But yeah, Victorino still holding on to that P1. Great drive from him for the time being. Gareth Higgins also no slouch. Trailing behind a little bit, but still holding on to that P2 is no mean feat. Chris Lolum still about 2 seconds clear of Gal Valero, another 3 seconds behind them. And again, with all these cars being spaced out, it really boils down to whether or not they'll be able to lead once they finally make their pit stop.
Again, this is not the same scenario that we had in the first heat where 4 drivers stayed out towards the end. They literally worked together to use the overcut, their advantage, and just mess up those drivers who actually pitted earlier than them. This is a completely different scenario, however, because it looks as though most of the drivers here are going to go all the way to the final lap and then make their pit stop. So we're not going to see some surprise differences in strategy that will come to the fore towards the end.
Yeah, definitely. The prevailing strategy here, of course, pitting in the end of the lap 3 to make a final sprint with fresh tires at the end. Actually, probably they're not even switching tires. They're just making the pit stop. They're just driving through it. So they're going to be running on fuels near the end of it. Yeah, add a liter of fuel. But what's a liter for a lap that's 20 kilometers long, right?
Yeah, I mean, they already topped it up anyway, so they don't have to worry about it. It's just trying to get that little nuisance for them, the pit stop, mandatory pit stop, out of the way. It's just something to clear it up, and then they can go. But, though, having said that, that little strategic element of whether or not you want to pit earlier or later still becomes very prevalent.
Yeah, and for those of you watching at home right now, this is AMX20, so if you're really interested, stick around because there's definitely going to be more combos, more external factors affecting the track, and more fun racing. So just stick around. We've got about 3 months of racing, 3 months worth of racing, almost 4 months actually.
Coming out for a miss, that's what Jimmy Broadbent would call it. Yeah. That particular part of the course really does test how well you can actually just get your apexes right to just get up to the Verstein corner from Calahad. How these sequence of corners just become very important. Now we're gonna head up to Bergberg, and most notably Niki Lauda's accident site.
Yeah, see the camera screen right now of David Toff hunting down Bruno De Carmo. Maybe a little bit of a switch of positions is on the cards, as these two are the closest drivers to each other on the grid right now. Still pretty clean, quiet for the rest of the drivers, but here comes David Toff. He's got the draft in this very relatively fast section in the middle of these high technical corners, making the pass onto Bruno De Carmo. Does have the inside track on the next left, which means he'll probably be able to keep it clean, make the pass happen, and stay in front. But Bruno De Carmo there having to give away the position. Does have the draft this time around, and you can see here drivers are flat on the foot throughout this entire section. A little bit of a let off of throttle as they're entering that next left, but regardless of that, despite what people may think, this is still a pretty fast sector.
Yep. Really hairy stuff because it does tighten up over there. But the track opens now a bit up to the carousel, and we saw just now how that major accident that took out a few drivers, it can still catch any wary driver out if they're not careful.
Yeah, definitely. You can see just how tight you have to take the carousel. There is really only one good line on that carousel, unless your car is slung too low, in which case it will end up scraping the concrete and cost you a bit. But aside from that, these cars are definitely well suited for it. I think the other alternative to cars like this will probably be the N24 cars, which have a little bit less aero but are just about as powerful as these. When it comes to races like this, however, where there's not really a big battle or incident happening, a bit of a lull state going on right now, definitely a bit of stuff to talk about. We're on board with Sam Coiter right now, chasing down Ayrton Reutemann, who going a bit wide there onto the curb. You can hear the underside of the car scraping just a little bit. And really, Sam Coiter tried to... Oh, a little bit of a bump there! Ayrton Reutemann losing it a little bit. I don't think he was expecting Ayrton Reutemann to scrub that much speed off. But both drivers managing to keep everything under control. I don't think Reutemann's going to be too happy with that little bump, but he has to give away the position to Coiter. And as I was going back to what I was saying, Coiter really on a recovery drive here.
Yeah, after being involved in that little kerfuffle at the carousel, it's been a good recovery, but it will not be 2-2 for the Dutchman. That will definitely be seeing a new winner after this. But who's it gonna be? Because we're gonna come to the pit stops here. $60 on the line. Is it Victorino? Is it Higgins? Or could it be Lolum? We'll wait and see then, because we're on the penultimate lap. Pit stops are still incoming for some of these guys.
Yeah, especially for these three drivers right now, they have to go into the pits for this final lap. So it's a matter of who gets the run out of the pit lane. And David Toff right now, he's clear of Bruno Carmo just a little bit. Is now chasing down Josh Perwin. He's in the draft down the back straight. We'll have to see whether the power of the AMG will be able to get him to pull alongside coming into Tiergarten. Looks like it definitely is going to be helping him. The draft there, Josh Perwin running in clean air, but not being able to gain as much speed. Here comes David Toff, making the pass pretty easily here. We'll have to see if he'll be able to hold it, especially because he's already taken the pits, and I don't think Josh has just yet. Yeah, he has, so not going to be too happy with that result because he will end up losing even more positions. Here comes the top three into the pit lane now.
And it looks as though it's Victorino who comes out in front. Lolum jumps Higgins in the pits.
Ooh. Great move from Higgins. Great move from Lolum to make it into P2, getting the jump onto Higgins. Valero actually ended up staying in the pit lane a little longer than he would like, which will set him back another 3 seconds. He's now almost 6 seconds behind the top three. So probably if he keeps it clean for the rest of the lap, he's still going to have to only contend with the fourth P4.
Yep, and someone's asking if Lolum's pick was faster. Yeah, because he just simply had a very good in-lap. He was gaining about 1.5 seconds to the back of Higgins before he came in anyway, so that's what really made a difference. The in-lap and how fast he actually could get the car off the jacks. Though, if you remember Max Benecki's video of how to actually make your pit stops fast, he is a Team Redline driver, so maybe some of those tricks may have been coming to good use for Lolum in his pursuit of the win here right now. So let's see then if that quick pit stop will pay dividends. Currently it is, because he is only about 0.6 of a second behind Victorino.
Yeah, amazing progress made by Chris Lolum here. Probably end up as might it be in contention, be the winner of Heat 2, in which case he'll walk away with the largest overall prize first of this entire session here. Just has to hunt down Victorino, and they're still quite early in the lap, so there's definitely a lot of opportunities for overtakes.
But what is he gonna overtake? We'll have to wait and see. Maybe he could get it like what we saw previously at the carousel when Koiter managed to pull one over there and take the victory. But we'll wait and see first as we look at what happened to Reutemann and Koiter incidentally just now, and we know what happened. He just helped him along the way, but credit to Reutemann, he actually just clutched it, gets the car going in the right direction, almost front wheel drive style, and he saves it, but unfortunately loses the position.
Yeah, I figured Reutemann may have actually been on the brakes a bit too long there, and wasn't really expecting it on the side of Koiter there. So a little bit of incident, unfortunate for I'm messing up these names right now. Really unfortunate for Reutemann, but regardless, he still manages to keep the car under control, so he's still definitely in the running. P13 right now, so he's still going to be ending up with some points on his behalf, in his favor. But Bruno Carmo here actually hounding down Valero. David Hoff had made the pass on to Valero a bit earlier, so now he's down to 5, and now Bruno Carmo is looking to do the same and bump him down to the spot.
Yep. Let's see where is the Carmo going to do, because this is a battle between two Ferraris, of course. It might be difficult because two equal cars. It just needs the driver to actually make the difference here. And for the time being, it looks as though Valero, with slight damage to the front of his car, may be a bit hampered by it.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Apex Racing car really suffering a little bit of damage. Meanwhile, Carmo is pretty much handling, his car is in pristine condition. And we're talking about the battle right now. Valero actually, he lost it near the entrance to Arenberg, and yeah, that's where the damage came from. But manages to recover it. Actually went for a 900-degree spin coming out of Arenberg, managing to keep it under control. So he's still gonna be pretty happy, pretty okay with that. Meanwhile, Chris Lollam actually now right onto the tailpipes of Matteo Victorino, and this probably is going to be really good for Chris Lollam, because that means he'll be in the draft at the back straight. If he doesn't overtake at any other point in this track, that's probably going to be the biggest contention point, and he'll probably make it happen quite easily. As they're exiting the carousel right now, 3/10 of a second gap between these two drivers, and Victorino is under severe amount of pressure.
Yep. Now, where is Lollam going to take him? He's definitely not going to try it here, because this is the twistier parts. We're coming up through Esbach and Whipperman. He could probably fancy his chances somewhere like the Schwabelschwanz, which is the little mini carousel, or wait until the long straight coming up to Tiergarten. That's his only other chance, because at this point in time, trying to overtake him over here will be almost suicidal, because you might just take both yourselves out of the race.
Yeah, definitely. As a driver right now, with really close to each other, at the very tail end of the race, you probably want to take the most risk-free option in terms of overtakes, because you don't want to end up in a position where both of you get taken out just due to some bad movements. But Chris Lollam just biding his time. In fact, he just wants to keep that gap as tiny as possible for that overtake. And Matteo Victorino, he definitely just has to hold it. Even though the BMW is slightly better than the top end, the draft is really all that matters for that particular section.
Yeah, let's see then. Where can he do it? It's just, again, as one of the comments just says, patience. And for Lollam, he knows how it feels like to bide his time, waiting for that one chance to just come by. But for the time being, though, is where. And for this one, he'll probably fancy his chance on the straight and just overtake before coming to the corner. Or he could try to do what the Vanderlyn brothers failed at, and it's the overtake coming up to the chicane. It's coming up to the chicane at Tiergarten. In fact, it wasn't one of the Vanderlyn brothers, it was one of those, it was the Van Thor brothers, I'm sorry. The Van Thor brothers that had the incident a couple of years back there. Now, the moment of truth comes here, Damon.
Yeah, he's in the draft. He's definitely, Victorino is swerving a bit to throw him off the tail, but Lollam is having none of it as they're swerving all over the track right now, just trying to get him out of the draft, but it looks like it's really not going to be working out for Victorino's favor. Chris Lollam is slowly inching forward, but will he be able to make the pass happen before Tiergarten? Doesn't look like it. He is still defending the position. Here comes Tiergarten. Oh, Chris Lollam does have the inside track for the Swiss left. If he's able to make that pass happen, he might be able to cut away Victorino. He does make that pass, and he makes it clean as they're coming to the right-hander. This is it. Rinsolum seizes the opportunity and makes it. And just as the end, the rain comes to put a pin onto the end of the race, and Chris Lolum takes it at the very, very last second.
Wowee, that was a real brave maneuver to come out Tiergarten side by side, and the track tightening up with the rain coming. He manages to pull it off, so take a bow, Lolum, making it a red line win in both heats, and the rain came just in time for everyone, so that we just escaped it in time to prevent a huge catastrophe when the drivers are out on slicks.
Yeah, definitely, and congratulations to Team Redline as well, pretty much clean sweeping this entire session. For the rest of the drivers right now, pretty good, pretty bang driving as well. Diego Villarreal here, the last driver that is still out on track, managing finishing P14. A lot of other drivers are out, unfortunately, but regardless, he's going to be pretty happy with that position. At least he ended up finishing the race. Peter Reutemann is just slightly ahead as well. And it really is an amazing race. This has been AMX20. Really, almost a different level of driving compared to what we've seen so far.
Absolutely. It just shows that the drivers here are consummate professionals at the peak of their powers to provide us some good racing. Yes, we had a few incidents in between, but it is to be expected, isn't it? Because it is the Nürburgring Nordschleife after all. A tight circuit like that can really cause a lot of mayhem, even in the best of them.
Yeah, here we go. The results here. Fastest lap actually being held by Matteo Victorino here. Gonna be have to contend with the P2, but still nice little bonus for him. Chris Lolum finishing in first for both qualifying and Heat 2. Gonna walk away as the biggest overall winner, I think, of this entire session. Gareth Higgins in P3, great drive from him. David Hoff in P4. Bruno De Carmo actually making it past Gael Valero as well, so he gets down to P6. Marcos Saavedra in P7, Lucas Armani P8, Julian Alvarez in P9, Sam Coyton in P10, Josh Perwin 11, Son Kulhavi 12, 13th Ayrton Reutemann, Diego Villarreal finishing up the 14th, and the rest unfortunately unable to finish the race, but rounding up the rest of the 22 drivers here. And boy, oh boy, AMX20 has done nothing but deliver. I hope you guys really enjoyed watching that, because we certainly enjoyed commentating over it. And yeah, I've got no words. What a race.
Yeah, no superlatives can describe how that brilliant last lap maneuver was from Chris Lolum. He bided his time, waited for that one opportunity, and he took it with both hands. And credit to where credit is due. Victorino literally just held on to that and didn't play any dirty tricks to put Lolum off. They just raced each other clean side by side and gave us a really good grandstand finish. Yeah,
last minute position switches are my favorite, because there's always going to be this element of will he or will he not form an attack, and we've seen a bunch of this over the course of the weekend. And for the last race of the weekend, I mean, what a spectacle. I'm really looking forward to seeing what AMX20 will bring again once it comes back in a fortnight. But regardless of that, we've already established how close AMX racing is this season, and I'm here for it. I'm 100% here for it.
Absolutely. And well, it's kind of like a taster for things to come, isn't it? We had a bit of a damn squib in terms of what the Nürburgring 24 offered, but this one, a short sprint version of the Nürburgring 24, we can't call it Nürburgring 30 minutes for both. It was an absolutely brilliant pair race heat that more than made up for the disappointment of the real race.
Yeah, I mean, really, sim racing is going to be a great substitute for IRL racing, because it always, it satisfies that urge, you go out there and just drive fast. And these drivers definitely did deliver on it. I can tell you for a fact, I wouldn't be able to drive that fast. And we're actually going to be conducting our interviews just about very soon with Gareth Higgins, our P3 finisher for Heat 2. So stick around and we'll be right back. Hi Gareth, how are you doing?
I am good, thank you. How are you?
Alright, so you did a pretty good result actually in the Heat 2, but Heat 1 really wasn't the best for you. Just guide me through about how you managed to reset your mental and what really you took advantage of to get that position in Heat 2?
Well, I feel like I got a very lucky break in Heat 1, to be honest, finishing 15th, because obviously that gave me reverse grid pole. So it's like, I couldn't waste the opportunity of that. I got quite unlucky in Heat 1 with, well, I was just making a couple mistakes, and then I had a small incident on the third lap, which put me back a bit. But yeah, I was able to, because I had reverse grid pole, I was, I was like, I can try and make the most of this opportunity.
Yeah, make the most of it. You definitely made the most of it, and it was really impressive to see the drive here. And I mean, the Nordschleife, what can you really say about it? This is the biggest race they had this season, and what are your thoughts about it, especially when it comes to external factors like fog and rain and so forth?
I love the track. It's my favorite track in the whole of motorsports, really. I've driven so many laps of it on the sim. This is the first time I've really driven it with like fog and then a very bit of light rain at the end, but that didn't affect anything, thankfully. But no, I love the challenge of the track.
Yeah, and I also just want to get your thoughts on what you think you prepare for when it comes to AMX20 over the course of this entire season, because this is the very first race. There's still a bunch more to go, and are you going to be part of a substantial amount of these, or probably just one-offs?
I will try to be. I know the next one is the Porsche Cup at Bathurst, which I've driven before and I quite like the combo, so I'm hoping I'll do good there. But we'll see. We'll see when it comes to it.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us for this interview. Congratulations on that Heat 2 finish, and hopefully we'll see you again doing well in the next couple of races.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're joined here by Chris Lollam, a winner of qualifying session as well as Heat 2. Congratulations on stellar finishes for this entire session. Talk us through what was going through your mind in Heat 2 right after Heat 1.
Well, the first lap was very awkward here. It's sort of extremely difficult to get side by side around here, other than the back straight, really. So it's a lot of getting stuck. It can get quite frustrating, but yeah, it's also super important to keep clean, because if you face backwards, then nothing's going to come from it. But yeah, coming up the hill on lap 1 was, I think it was too wide, two rows, and then there was a big crash up the hill in front of me. I somehow managed to get through that, which gave me the chance to go for the win. But yeah, it was quite good fun.
Yeah, and you actually managed to get the jump onto Gareth when we came out of pit lane at the end of lap 3 into lap 4. So it definitely was a great race to you near the very end as well, when you passed Victorino all the way into the finish there. Talk us through like what really was your strategy coming into the session, if there were any, before the actual race.
The second race, well, obviously there's pit stops, there's up a bit, but yeah, I knew, I sort of had it in mind that I was going to pit on the last lap possible, because it's very easy to come back out in traffic again if you pit on lap 1 or lap 2 when other people stay out. So getting clean air. I mean, from the first race I think I didn't do it quite right in the first race. Pitting on the first lap alongside a lot of other people was not the right thing to do, because all of us had the same idea. But yeah, the second race was obviously, it was much better. Again, a lot of time stationary in the pit stop, which let me have a chance for the win as well. But yeah, in terms of strategy, that was it really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the very nice adaptability coming from a lot of drivers on the grid right now. And on the topic of AMX20, is there anything that you're really looking forward to over the course of the season?
Well, the main thing is the variants. There's a lot of different combos you can race. There's a car for everyone. Some people drive every race. Some people just pick and choose what they want to do. Right? There's no commitment. You can just join whatever you want to do and have fun. And there's also a little bit of money on the line as well. So yeah, it's a good, competitive and fun series.
Yeah. Okay. And just before we end the interview here, is there anyone that you want to thank? Anyone you want to shout out before we end it here?
Yeah, of course. Just a partnership with Redline and this championship is it's good fun for the drivers included, and I'm sure it's pretty fruitful as well. So, yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you very much, Chris, for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you even more throughout the rest of the season. Great drive from you. Congratulations on the win.
Thank you.
And now for our final interview of the night, we are joined here by Matteo Victorino. Matteo Victorino, thank you very much for joining us here, and good podium finish for Heat 2. But you of course have to talk about what really happened during Heat 1 and how you managed to reset your mental for the next heat.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you. In the first heat, I got a bit hold up in the uphill part, and I don't know. Chris just tapped me on the rear, and unfortunately I ended up in the wall. So I saw that we had fast repairs, so I just bring it back to the pit and went again, and just hope to be fast enough to get to P15 again, to get on at least the reverse grid again.
Yeah, and you definitely did very well, because in Heat 2 you ended up in P2, which is unfortunate, because of course the back straight is really where a big overtake will happen, especially if another driver gets into your draft. Talk us through about what you really feel about the track when it comes to the factors that will be affecting it, like the fog and the rain that came near the end.
Yeah, I mean, when the spotter said that we were going to have rain, I just looked at the weather radar and I saw that we could just finish without rain, so I was not really worried about it. And just not a big factor. But then I just tried to be fast enough to keep Roland behind for the main straight, the back straight, I mean. And he was just faster, and he had also much better pit stops than me. So he caught a lot there.
Okay, anything that you're probably looking forward to for the rest of the season? Are you joining here specifically for AMX20, or are you planning to take part in more races on the calendar?
Yeah, it's my first time actually doing AMX races, so I will look at the other ones and probably register for more, even not in AMX20. So yeah.
Okay, I mean, it'll be very fun to see you around in the other classes as well. Anyone that you want to shout out or thank for the opportunity before we end this interview here?
Yeah, I mean, thank you to my team, thank you to the organization, and that was a really fun event, so thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Matteo. We'll see you for the next races as well, and best of luck to you.
Thank you.
And there you have it, the thoughts of the top three drivers of Heat 2. And it's really interesting to see exactly what really goes on through their minds during over the course of in between the heats.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when guys that didn't have the best first heat, they go into the second one, they just look for that lucky break. And for those guys that finish around P15, 13, 14, that's all they look for. And then that's how they get the rubber to green in that particular instance, around the green hell, incidentally. So, it's important to just not switch off it either way. It's all about the mental game.
Yeah, and really this race has set the benchmark for what we're going to be looking forward to the race during the rest of the race calendar. And not just counting AMX20, we've still got a bunch of AMX5 races, AMX0. I mean, I'm excited. I think you are as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, looking at the schedule for what's coming up, those who always visit the website would know what's up next. It's just more and more of the same, isn't it? But the locations that are different is what makes this season completely setting the way from what the other seasons have come before. and just give a bit more variety. So can't wait for those.
Yeah, we're about to wrap this up here. If you guys have been watching, thank you so much for supporting this the broadcast. Thanks a lot for the comments. You're really entertaining in the sense of that getting people to get involved. If you want to be part of the community at large, of course, we'll have our socials in the bottom in just a little bit. But yeah, I mean, AMX always delivering in terms of fun and entertainment, right?
Yep. And a bit of crashes in between just to get everyone talking about how it happened and all that. The crashes, the racing, the action, you name it. It really what makes joining this league and commentating on it really worthwhile.
Yeah, definitely. I've been enjoying my time here since last season as well, and now joining here at the very start really warms my heart, gets me excited. And our socials down there here from Instagram, Twitch, X, formerly known as Twitter. You can join our Discord community here at AMX Global, the YouTube channel which you are currently watching this broadcast on, as well as the website amxrace.com, where you can register and sign up to race in any of the other races we have in the calendar. Short film content on TikTok. But for today at least, I'm Damon and I'm joined here by Amir. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next weekend. Toodaloo.